good morning and good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to another show, a Saturday morning show or afternoon, depending on where you're at. It's technically afternoon for me. Um, so with this episode, I'm going to be taking a look at a month-old video from. Oh, I forgot to actually edit that in there too. I was going to highlight him on there in my description. This video is courtesy of Supreme Leader Streams, who I'm not sure who they are. Their channel used to be up for quite a while, and then it either went down for a while or they made everything private. I'm not sure. It seemed like it kind of slipped out of existence and then it came back. At least for me, that could just be like the way the YouTube algorithms and stuff. All of a sudden, there was more activity on it, and I could have swore it was just sort of abandoned for a while. Anyway, he has been posting, or they have been posting videos of Darth Dawkins content from his Discord stuff. So I'm going to be covering one of these because it was a conversation. I happened to catch this one. I was listening to it while I was at work. While I was working, and it's a discussion between Darth Dawkins and Taco. And Taco is an individual who set up a twice a month kind of Discord AMA style kind of freeform debate panel with a group of atheists, including me, T. Jump, Randolph Richardson, Amy Newman is now in the group. I rarely get to participate. I was there the last one, but I don't usually get to stay for long because I'm usually out of town or just not online at the time they go. It's usually Sunday mornings. So if I don't know in advance, well, even if I do know in advance, Sunday mornings are usually a bad time for me. Taco kind of runs that, or at least administers it, and he participates in that quite a bit. And he's on Discord quite a bit, chatting with these guys. So, and the last time I was on there, he's been working on a kind of counter precept apologetic, which I need to get in touch with him and find out exactly how he's got it mapped out, because I'm kind of curious. So we're going to be jumping in through this one. This one's going to be kind of boring, but it's just a Saturday morning. I've been trying to get things set up with other things this morning, and it's been a day full of glitches. I got the time wrong. Peter are going to go for it, who produces for Iron Raw. He's going live right now. I thought they went live at 11 a.m. because I know Hive Sci goes live at 10 or 10:30. I thought going live at noon my time would work. No, Iron Raw is going live at the same time. Now, Aaron's in Texas, so that's an hour or two ahead of me. I think 2 hours ahead, so where he's at. Anyway, yeah, so I'm completely goofed up. But it is what it is. So, but be prepared. There'll be some drama between me and Peter. Just kidding. Peter comes on live to disown me. All right. Well, that being said, let's say hello to some. Let's get oriented here. I'm going to say hello to some people in the chat. Alex Baptista is here. Good to see you. Cutlery Duck. Ronnie Maynard is here. Good to see you. Jail Warren has stopped by. Good to see you, Jail. John Fapiano. Hello, John. It's early for him. John's out there on the left coast. The People's Republic of California. John May. I wonder what will happen. Nothing, John. Nothing will happen. We will all just be a few hours older. That's it. Driving while listening to Jefferson Spatchcock, living the dream. Clive Gordon. Well, I hope you've got a long drive ahead of you. And I apologize for making it feel longer. Cutlery Duck again. David, good to see you. We know what's going to happen. We know what they always do. Delay, distract, deny, obfuscate, prevaricate. Yeah, that's going to be kind of that. Thank you, Michael Deaton, and good to see you. Thanks for the reminder. Stephen Hall. Hawley is here. Well, I remember this channel was an attempt to try and set up the opportunity to copyright strike people for covering Darth on YT, which I think is why he took it down. That sounds familiar. Because I'm not really sure how they get away with it. At one point in one of these I was listening to, it said something like, hey, there's no recording on this. And I'm like, then why are you recording it? Clearly you're, and as far as I know, Supreme Leader Stream, my brother was saying that he suspected that Taco was Supreme Leader Stream. And I don't know if that's true. I don't know if this is a different person. I really don't. There's a link to this. In fact, if you look down here, that's harder to see now. Let me Get that as big as I can. Debate Darth at discord.ggpolitics. Email slstreams@yahoo.com. Donate Bitcoin, which isn't sus at all. Sorry, that's just me. So if you want to engage in scam coin with Supreme Leader streams, you can. But yeah, who knows? I think it's hilarious that like me covering someone else's YouTube video, which is a recording of a Discord channel that this person may be a mod for. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's fair play. Odd Fan 2 here for another live. Good to see you. QC. Floyd FP is here. Good to see you. The legend himself. I hope you're doing well. Reggie, hello from the place Daylight Savings doesn't exist. Where is that? I mean, you're in the United States. Is that Arizona? And isn't it only like 1/3 of Arizona? John Ferguson says that he talked to him yesterday. You talked to Darth yesterday. For how long? Did you make it about a minute in? I mean, if you did, that's 59 seconds more than he'll let me talk. Reggie, it is Arizona. Yeah, I can never remember like how much of it is Arizona completely no. Because I remember like back when I was a kid, I felt like some parts of Arizona observed daylight savings and others didn't. And now I don't. Now I think it's just the whole state, which would make it simpler. But okay, so I think I've set this up as well as I can. Thank you, JL, for giving me the like. I'll be expecting those strikes and flags, I guess, if I'm covering this one. But yeah, I will probably give a shout out to. Maybe it's a good thing I didn't tag Supreme Leader streams in this, because otherwise you would have gotten the notification like right away. Yeah, we'll see. Okay, but yeah, it's man, it's been a morning already, and I haven't even been awake. Maybe that's the problem. I haven't been awake that long. Got a good breakfast in. I've got coffee. It should improve, but I've already lost 2 things. I goofed up the start time. Yep, that's what happens when you burn the candle at both ends. Living too hard. I'm being sarcastic. I don't live hard at all. Don't have the 200 follows, so had to be through chat. Asked about always truth revealing and appearance of faraway stars. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I don't have enough followers on TikTok either to justify that. Like that was the only way I could do anything, when he was live, was to, bounce comments in the chat. And apparently that was too far. You have to get out of here, degenerate. You can talk to Darth until you get him off his script, at which you become a juvenile male at the cafeteria table. A juvenile male, or as a female, you're not being demure enough. You need to calm down. Okay, all right, enough preamble and nonsense here. Not to say that saying hello to you all is nonsense, but I'm already feeling it. I'm feeling it in me. I'm probably going to end up talking about a movie or something in about 20 minutes, and then 20 minutes. April 9th, good morning ish. Yep. Yeah, thank you, Reggie. Navajo Nation doesn't observe it. Now, I don't think they ever have, right? Because it's federal land, it's the reservations. So, and actually, it wouldn't, because the daylight saving thing is a federal thing, but they just don't have to do that if they don't want to. I think there's other reservations in the United States that don't observe daylight saving time. All right, here we go. So this conversation, listen to it a little bit. I'm not exactly sure if Taco kind of rolls out his precept counter thing. I don't think that he does. I think he's been working on this maybe since then, because it was last weekend or whatever they were on there, and that's when I talked to him. This is a few weeks old now already. This is a month old. So let's see what happens. And I'm going to apologize that the volume might be a little low on Darth initially. Other people are louder, but I think it adjusts itself later on. So kind of be patient with that. I'll adjust the sound as much as I can, but here we go.
Okay, tell me in 1 or 2 sentences, in your own words, what is the presuppositional position?
So I was getting to that with Tonlock, but basically you have to have X things that make for a human intellectual experience. So I was asking, before you jumped in here, he was talking about that with Giannis. So I was actually asking, what are those X things that he believes are required for the, or precept apologetics requires, so that he can state them, so that we can have a starting point. So what is it that you guys say that presuppositional apologetics has to have for a human intellectual experience? Because you didn't get there.
Our position is that the God of the Bible, which includes his attribute and property set, is the necessary precondition for all facts and for human intelligibility.
So I think there's something kind of weird about this. I think Taco's accurate there, especially when he's talking about the way Darth Dawkins and Tonlock and other kind of precept weenies talk about this. I think he's presenting it the way they kind of present it. Like, you have to have, God has to be there in order for there to be some semblance of intelligibility, your capacity to understand things and reason through things, and then your capacity to actually make truth statements or something like this. The problem with that is that in sort of the way that Taco has laid it out, I don't think it's problematic. I think it's accurate for the way they kind of represent it to most people. But the way they're representing it, it makes it even harder to understand how precept is distinguished from like a transcendental argument. Transcendental arguments are kind of based on this idea that how do we have these things, like these intangible things like laws of logic? How do we have this sort of seeming regularity, these kinds of things? Where does this come from? Is there something more to this? Is, you know, and you're appealing to something. Well, you're appealing to a transcendental. They're not great. Mostly, most transcendental arguments that I've seen have been, I think, really convoluted. And I'm not talking about ones just from guys like Matt Slick or something like that. Matt Slick's transcendental argumentation is actually really bad. But especially the way he ends up conflating properties and stuff like that, it doesn't work. But the that tag argument has kind of gotten blended in, because most of these guys are coming at the precept. They did not read Van Til. Some of them have read it a little bit. I haven't read all of Van Til. I frankly cannot maintain interest in what Van Til is writing to give a damn. And not only that, but if you read 4 pages, you will read 400 contradictions. It's crazy bad. And so after that, I just put it away. Most of these guys claim they understand Van Til because they've watched a lot of videos of Greg Bonson, who claim to really understand Van Til and take the precept apologetic even further. Except that Van Til in his last days, according to a guy that chronicled a lot of his later writings and stuff and did the editing for a lot of his books, understood there were big differences in the way Van Til and Bonson conceptualized the presuppositional apologetic. And Van Til did not agree with some of Bonson's takes, some of his entailments. So a lot of these guys are informed by that. What they don't understand is that the big difference between something like a transcendental argument, I think the transcendental argument is trying to posit the necessity of some kind of ontological metaphysical thing that serves as a foundation for all the other things. In a way, a lot of tag arguments seem to kind of like flirt with something like Platonism. There's got to be something where these properties of these things come from, the properties and attributes that we see. How do these things obtain, and how do they maintain and sustain throughout different categories as they apply to different things. Red has a quality of redness that applies to all things red, this kind of stuff. Precept is about, you have to assume the truth of especially Christian presuppositional apologetics. There is a difference. You can do a precept kind of thing for kind of a general creator God or God of theism. It is the presupposition that the assumption of the truth of that God, or the assumption of the truth of the Christian worldview, which is what these guys use, is the necessary component, the necessary foundation for knowledge. And that's the connection they can't make. It's a distinction that they barely seem, they're not aware of. Most of these guys are not aware that that is the real difference. They will go back to, well, God is the foundation for the stuff that's there. Therefore, he's also the foundation of what you can know about the stuff that's there. That doesn't even hold up in Christian theology, because you have the capacity of denying that God or getting things wrong. So that causes a problem, because if that follows from their precept view, what you're getting wrong is grounded in that God, and what you're denying to yourself, or the lies that you can tell yourself, or belief that are being told by other people, that also is God's doing ultimately. And that has some problems. that's really where I think you can nail precept to the wall and just sort of end it. Because if the properties of that God are necessary for the worldview, and the assumption of the truth of the worldview is the necessary foundation for knowledge, then the properties of that God end up kind of breaking down with the fact that one of the necessary things that we have going on in the world is evil. And evil, given God's, especially in Darth's arguments, there is a redemptive plan for man, so the existence of evil is a necessary component of that. Whether he believes it's character building, or it's, in his case, it's to keep us from falling in love with creation, whatever, it's a necessary thing. It's necessary. So it can't be avoided. And if it necessarily exists in that sense, it is dependent upon God. And so that's an entailment that's potentially devastating for them, which they usually ignore. Matt, tag is just an attempt to define God into existence so they can manufacture justification for thinking their opinions are objective. Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
But how do you get to that conclusion is what I was asking him.
Oh, how do we arrive at it? We arrive at that state due to God's self-disclosure of himself through natural and special.
You're right, Shatterhouse. There are transcendental arguments that don't depend on transcendentals per se, because different there's different categories of transcendental arguments, and I'm not well versed in all of them. I'm oftentimes I end up thinking of a transcendental argument kind of like Matt Slick's, where he's talking about, basically like, where do you get the laws of logic? Are the laws of logic absolute? Are they a product of a mind? Therefore, if they're a product of a mind and they're absolute, they must come from an absolute mind. That's sort of his which is not great. And I think that's the only thing that he says in terms of transcendental. That whatever transcendental is for like a Matt Slick style apologetic tag, thing, is that the transcendentals are kind of those abstract things that we deal with in life that aren't directly connected to something physical. I think I'm getting that right as far as Slick goes. Yeah, there's other older transcendental arguments that don't traffic in that. Do you think Darth has actually read Van Til? No, I don't think he's read Van Til. I think he's watched Greg Bonson on repeat. That's what I sincerely believe. I think he's read excerpts of Van Til. Has he read all of his books cover to cover? No. And if he has, he's sped read through them, and he doesn't understand. And it probably skipped the introductions where, because you can get, I have to find them again. You can get things that are written by not necessarily Van Til, but from the guy that was kind of like compiling a lot of his later stuff, his editor or whatever, who wrote about Van Til and Bonson's disagreements over precept. Shadfow says he has, and he's debated people on Van Til before. Has he actually said that he's read everything from him? Maybe he has. I could be forgetting that, but my guess was that he hadn't. That was my guess. I know he knows Greg Bonson because I've seen. Hell, there was an old video where somebody was directly comparing. Like they'd play a Greg Bonson quote, and they'd play some snippet of Darth Dawkins in a conversation with somebody. It was verbatim. So he's practically memorized Bonson's script. According to Darth, Van Til thinks epistemology and ontology ground each other. Yeah, and who knows? Van Til may have said something that goofy. That's kind of the problem, though. There's Van Til will make a claim on one page and then skip off into and then try to give two different metaphors or two different analogies about what he means, and they don't follow. They don't connect with each other, and they don't follow from like a claim like that he made. So it's really weird. I think it's interesting to hear Christians say, like, I don't understand why more philosophers didn't really just really tackle this, what Van Til had going on here. Van Til didn't really have a lot going on. It's a whole lot of smoke. I'm pretty sure Slick never read Kant. I'm pretty sure he didn't either. Yeah.
Revelation, and apart from that, God himself or the nature of reality could not be known.
That's
what's
the
dishonest about
stupidest
that?
thing I've ever heard.
I kind of agree with Taco there because that's really not informative. Like there's this ultimate thing responsible for everything, and without it, you couldn't know anything. The entailment from that basically is not without it, you wouldn't be able to know anything. Without it, there would be nothing. That's the direct entailment from that. Making this assumption like, well, if there wasn't a God, you wouldn't be able to know anything. Well, if there wasn't a God based on what you just set up, I wouldn't be here at all. Nothing would be here at all. Whether I know things or not, an order of magnitude different, right? If you get into things like, okay, all right, let's get into the fact that my epistemology is dependent upon that God. Why is it I can be convinced of things that aren't true? Wouldn't that be dependent on that God then? Well, no, that's because of your sin nature. Like, oh, so sin comes in. So sin has an effect on my epistemology. How is that? How is that then not part of God's plan? Well, God's not responsible for your sin. Okay, so when I do sin, however that's possible, that then changes my epistemology so that I can become convinced of things that aren't true. Is that a necessary component of the redemptive plan God has for man? He has to say yes.
All right, so
Okay, all right. Hold on
so
a second.
what is it that you
second.
so you're
Okay.
just jumping to a
What's
conclusion.
stupid?
So I was asking,
Listen to me. Let's do this,
Am I-
dude.
Okay,
Let's
okay,
do this
okay.
like adults. Okay.
Am I
Now,
just
what is
freeform
stupid?
or
Tell me. You need to be specific.
Yeah, telling Darth that like, oh yeah, that last thing that you said is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. While accurate, it could be very accurate. That will, yeah, he will start to steam under his wig. JL says, I remember I was in a room with Darth and he said Van Til was one of the greatest philosophers ever. That made me laugh reflexively. He banned me for a month. Was that before you became like number one on his least wanted list?
Instead of generalize, what is stupid? Be specific.
you're jumping to a conclusion with it's just straight. You're jumping straight to conclusion. There's nothing backing up your conclusion.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you a very simple question.
Thank you, David, because I think what you're remembering this kind of coincides with my recall. Darth is quite proud of his mostly pirated, nearly complete PDF collection of Van Til's work. He has mentioned it many times, but I don't recall him saying that he read the whole thing. Okay, that's kind of where I am. I know that he knows their works. In fact, I seem to remember there was a time he was talking to somebody. He demanded, like, I think he asked him if he'd ever heard of Van Til, and the person said yes. So then he demanded that the person tell him the name of one of Van Til's works. And I think in that one he does say something like, "Yeah, I've got copies right here," and it was the way he said copies. I'm like, yeah, you've got you've got those PDF things from the servers. And I mean, it's easy to get. There's lots of like reading rooms and stuff. The friend of mine that I used to debate theology with quite a bit in real life had quite a few things like that, or at least knew about those kinds of reading rooms where people would share those. I got copies of those from One Way, that kind of fundy guy that talks with Praise I Am over on his channel. He would make his cribbed copies of everything that he had, and it wasn't just Christian philosophy; it was damn near everything. He had a pirated PDF list of all sorts of stuff. So yeah, you could get everything that you wanted from him. But yeah, I can't remember what that debate was because he was getting angry that the guy was taking too long to look up. The guy's like, "Why do I need to know the title of one of his books? I'm familiar with the name." And he's like, "Well, you haven't even read his stuff." And the guy's like, "Why would I read his stuff?" "Well, because you're on here debating." He's like, I'm here debating you. Oh, okay. Here we are. Darth versus Kenny Rhodes. Okay. I remember Kenny Rhodes. JL says, I'd love to hear exactly what it was that dictated to an omni entity that a redemptive plan is logically necessitated. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I've heard people say when something like the redemptive plan gets mentioned by somebody like Darth, people will be like, well, wait a minute, why that way? Why not? Well, could you? Usually, there's some kind of weird appeal. Well, do you know a better way? Could you have come up with something better? Why don't you make a universe from nothing or make some claim like that? It just gets really sassy and stupid. And so, why does he need a redemptive plan? The most thoughtful ones usually involve some kind of character building. And a connection with, God doesn't want moist robots. He doesn't just want to beam into your head that you love him and serve him. even though everything depends upon him. Right? Like that's entailed from his nature, or at least the qualities they say he has. Um, and then we'll try to be like, well, this way you choose him because you want to. I'm like, well, we really need to talk about the difference between what God wants and what a being with those properties can do with a concept like quote unquote want, and what we do with want. Um, because if you're looking at an eternal destination of paradise or perdition, that want for a being such as ourselves, contingent upon a creator, could very quickly be defined as a need. Like you need the information so that you can avoid the bad place. And God's more or less like, yeah, you could put it that way, but what I want to see is that you want me no matter what I do to you, or no matter what my creation puts you through. I want to see if you still want me after all that. Because if you're that faithful to me, then I'll be faithful to you right back. Like, no, because God has the possibility to be, God should have the capacity to be infinitely faithful and never violent. And it does not need to be a quid pro quo. Of course, if you mention this to Christians, they'll be, no, of course that's not what he's doing. Like, okay, then explain why he's infinitely just and infinitely merciful at the same time. Explain that. I know Darth's explanation for it. It doesn't work.
In the case that the God of the Bible exists, can he be known independently and apart from his revelatory actions?
I wouldn't know because there's nothing that is.
Isn't everything, isn't, according to Darth, isn't everything God does revelatory? I mean, I think that's even just general for Christianity. There's general revelation, which is you inferring a God because you assume that the reality that you're in was created by an agent, and that agent is God. Or you get direct communication from him by cracking a Bible or having a burning bush yammer at you for a little while, telling you to free some Israelites or some shit. I don't think the bush did that, but you know what I mean.
Even close to what you guys are posing.
Okay, so if you don't know, if you don't know, then how can you say that it's stupid?
Because it sounds bad. It just sounds bad. Um, I always say God has a boss who gave him rules for the goal. Yahweh is clumsy. That explains the oopsies on earth like floods and sin. I mean, it does. I mean, there's actually like this is a very generalized description of it, but I think it was a certain branch of early Gnosticism where they kind of, and I think if there's any Gnostics around, they still kind of hold to this, where there was the God of creation was called the demiurge, and is essentially kind of like, it's sort of like a god of order in that it's sort of brought order out of chaos. So there's this sort of like Marduk Tiamat kind of element before there was order out of that primeval whatever muck or whatever. The demiurge comes along and kind of like creates a kind of world or universe of semi-order in it, but he's basically not good. He's not a likable fella. And he creates a world that's orderly, but it's also harsh and cruel and cold and all this other kind of stuff. And then the Jesus that kind of comes along as somebody that's there to kind of basically be the antithesis to that, you know, kind of a yin yang relationship. The demiurge is the creator, the lawmaker, the crusher, the destroyer. He's all just. He's the one, you know, there's hard and fast rules. And if you break them, you get broken. And Jesus is there to show up as to be this antithesis to that and be the one that's merciful and is there to take that on. Uh, Gnostics explain this better, and if you look up Gnosticism, you'll get a better explanation of this. But it kind of makes sense that the good and the bad kind of struggling with that, and that's sort of built into humanity. You know, the desire to forgive, or you know, not even a compunction, but sort of an acknowledgement that maybe forgiveness is better versus sometimes a reaction to punish, right? And sort of trying to craft justice out of that, so that justice isn't simply merely us feeding a desire to see a quote unquote wrongdoer get hurt right back. Um, there's a push and a pull there. So yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for the super sticker. Some guy named Bob. I appreciate it. It's going into the equipment fund, which hopefully that I'm waiting for some finances to clear. Paid off a bunch of stuff. Taxes came in, which is good. Bonus came in, also good. Making sure some debts are covered, and then I will be making some purchases to get that office built. So hopefully that will be up in another few weeks. Every time I hear these old god names, I want to throw on a materia and cast Knights of the Round. Fenton says it makes way more sense. Yeah, I think it does too. And I think it kind of in a way it's a kind of a projection of humanity into this sort of like big epic scale. The demiurge kind of represents our kind of cold and a kind of binary style of thinking. The Darth Dawkins urge. The idea that you want to it's God's law is hard and fast, as opposed to Jesus, where it's like, oh, hang on a minute. You made this stuff. Now you're yelling at it because it doesn't live up to your expectations, but you made it. So why not work with it? Why not improve it? Why not let them see if they can improve themselves? There's a humanity to that and a flexibility that pops in there, and they start to, you can see they compare and contrast, nicely, as opposed to what I think modern Christianity has done is try to take all of those sometimes conflicting properties and attributes and blend them together and then say this is God, and every single manifestation of them, even when they're kind of disparate, is great. It's all good, baby. It's like, is it? I don't know. It seems kind of tough that he wants to forgive everybody, but he needs to punish everybody. So he creates a catch called Jesus. Like, that's screwed.
Because it's a retarded point, right? So what you're
No,
saying,
you're
what you're saying is,
responding-
I'm trying to answer your question. I'm trying to answer your question.
Just let him
So what
finish, Doc. Go on.
So what you're saying basically is that you know that a God exists because of personal revelation or divine revelation or whatever, and you're jumping to the conclusion with nothing backing it.
Yeah.
You're just presupposing. That's what I'm saying. It's intellectually dishonest.
No, hold on a second. Did I say that my advocacy of God being the necessary precondition was a mere presupposition? Did you hear me say that?
It was a mere. Well, that's actually sort of the trick, right? This is going to be interesting. How is that gonna? What is a mere This is coming from the guy that says that you do need to presuppose the truth of the Christian worldview as a foundation for knowledge. That is kind of the central idea to a presuppositional apologetic, and supposedly the worldview. So, what's the difference between a mere presupposition, and that presupposition?
Well, it is a presupposition because there's nothing.
Okay, regardless of
point.
whether you want to call it presupposition, can mean different things. It can have different nuances of meaning in different contexts. Now, it's very simple.
Your point to be valid.
Hold on a second. The reason why you think it's stupid is because you are unacquainted and unfamiliar with transcendental reasoning. Now, do you believe that the existence of temporal facts and the intelligibility of temporal facts is going to require an
define temporal facts?
May I? Okay, a temporal fact is anything that begins to exist.
Okay. I'm not exactly sure what he's going to do with this. I think this is probably the biggest mistake an apologist can try to make, is to try to use transcendental argumentation, or what they think transcendental arguments are. Because like I said, I'm pretty sure there's more than one, but try to take elements of that to prop up what the presuppositional apologetic, because ultimately, and maybe I'm getting this wrong about metaphysics, it seems to me that you're using a tag argument or tag style argumentation to try to support the ontological reality of the creator God you're talking about. But from my understanding of most tag arguments, it's basically an appeal to it. It's kind of an inference kind of thing. And so, like, this isn't getting to the heart of the presupposition thing. This is just a continuation of winding it back to, like, well, hang on, I can use a tag argument to show you why the ontological necessity of this God is a thing. Great. That does not, what the connection that has not been made is, why is my assumption of the truth of that thing the necessary foundation for knowledge, even when I express other facts? How does that follow? I get that if there's no God, there's nothing else. What I do not understand, and what I think is juvenile, is for you to say, well, if there was no God, you wouldn't be able to know anything. That's not entailed from that. It's obvious that I wouldn't be able to, quote unquote, know anything because I wouldn't be around. The entailment of this ontological being that is necessarily extant and is the foundation and creator of all things in reality, of absolutely everything. If it's not there, then absolutely everything is missing. It's absent. It's gone. It's over. It's done. So again, this is just going back a step and saying, oh, well, hey, you're not familiar with transcendental argumentation. I'm going to show you some, the transcendental arguments, as far as I know, transcendental arguments for God are about arguing for the existence of that God. But just because you could use a tag argument to support, somebody could become convinced, like, I think that is a strong argument for the existence of that God. Now, I've never seen a transcendental argument actually establish well in rhetoric the necessity of that God, and the claim that they do. But let's say that you do have that one and you're convinced. I think this particular tag argument for God shows it's a convincing argument that God is ontologically necessary. Great. Why is presupposing that truth necessary as a foundation for knowledge? Why is that the necessary foundation for knowledge? Presupposing that. I didn't presuppose this. Right? God, Darth has been saying, you need to presuppose God in order for truth to be a thing. So in order to get you to do that, I'm going to try to convince you with a tag argument so that you can presuppose that the necessary foundation for knowledge is the truth of the God of the Christian worldview. He didn't presuppose it then. You're just using another argument to ground the other argument. That's not you're justifying an argument with another argument. That's not what the presupposition is.
Okay. Now, do you accept or do you deny that in order to have the existence of temporal facts and the intelligibility, I'm answering, do not, hold on a second, dude. You told me I was over talking.
Getting loud, Darth. Ooh, getting loud. Switch to decaf. Nicola writes, not sure what Dede thinks begins to exist means, but temporal facts aren't limited to things coming into existence. See, yeah, I had a problem with that too. I didn't think that was true. The sun's light taking 8.3 minutes to reach us is a temporal fact. Yeah. Nicola, don't get Darth started on time. So goddamn boring. I have to go, wait. I need to talk over you. You're making sense. Yeah. You made a potentially damaging point. Now it's time for me to get shouty.
In the debate, and now you're cutting me off in the minute, in the second I'm asking you a question.
I'm asking for you to define what
okay,
you're
I'm trying to get there. Why don't you shut your big pie hole? Ooh. Shut your pie hole and let me finish.
Pie hole?
Now, either you accept or you reject that the existence of temporal facts and the intelligibility of temporal facts will be in virtue of something that is an ultimate or an irreducible, indispensable primary, or not.
This makes no sense. I mean, even given like what Nicola had put in there, the speed of light as a temporal fact, it's a rate and it's measurable. That's what would establish it as a temporal fact. Whether it was absolute or unchallenged in all circumstances, I think would sort of depend. I mean, but that's an area of physics that I don't have the brain for. This idea that he's saying, well, that fact has to be irreducible, and I'm not sure what that means. I mean, a temporal fact like the speed of light isn't it's grounded by the fact that it's measured. That's what grounds it. It's the rate of the amount of time it takes for light to go from a source to another destination. How long does it take for it to become visible? That's it, and it does seem to be constant. So it may not be constant around black holes, right? Or maybe I'm wrong about that. Don't get me started on this. But this grounding thing, I find this funny with him. A fact just needs to be grounded in something that's observable. But then again, I'm pretty sure that from Darth's viewpoint, it's only a fact if it's like 100. It's a complete certitude, 100% unequivocally, undeniably true. That makes it a fact.
Which is your position?
I don't know if I have one.
Well, then if you don't know the answer to the question, then how can you say it's stupid?
I think they're talking about two different things. Like, because you don't know the answer to this question, you can't then turn around and say that the thing that I said, 2 or 3 sentences ago was stupid. Am I following Darth correctly here?
Who's the ignorant one here?
Definitely you guys.
Okay, how am I ignorant when I'm asking you the nature of transcendental reasoning and you don't know the answer to the question? And we're stupid?
Maybe what if everything we don't know if everything began to exist or if it's always existed.
How do you know that?
Scientists.
No, we here.
No. How do you know that statement?
Because we don't know that yet. It hasn't.
How do you know? Okay, hold on a second. Who's we?
The general population.
Okay, now
I do want you to clarify, though.
Okay,
That's what
I'm
going
to ask you. Listen, dude, I want to have a grown-up conversation with you. You were the one who accused me of.
I think that's been Darth's desire for a long time. I think he fails to realize that the common denominator making his hopes and dreams of an adult conversation impossible is him.
Bad behavior, but you're the one who is exemplifying bad behavior on
I'm
full
asking
display.
for clarification.
I don't ever talk me.
Yeah, exemplifying bad behavior in terms of two adults attempting to have a conversation is one of them getting extra blown out shouty on the microphone. That's a pretty good indicator that somebody is wilding out.
Now, you're the one exemplifying really bad behavior here. And you write me a poorly written, poorly worded attack, and I graciously responded to you and said, let's talk about it. And you're behaving like a horse's ass here?
Wait a minute. I'm a little confused then. So it sounds like he wrote him something? He wrote him an argument, and now Darth got him in here, and Darth is. It just sounds like Darth is putting him through the churn and burn of his normal apologetic mumbo jumbo instead of actually like sharing with the audience. Like, okay, this is what Taco laid out for me in writing. Let's go through this point by point. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's not what Taco presented to him in writing, but he just said it was written, and now and Darth stepped off the throne to look him in the eye and be like, all right, let's talk about this, little kid.
Now, I'm going to ask you a simple question. Okay. Do you have a defeater for the God of the Bible? Because if you don't, then you cannot say that nobody knows what the nature of reality is and the origin of reality. Do you have a defeater for the Christian God?
There are plenty of quote unquote defeaters for the Christian God. I don't know why would a defeater be at all. This is the thing that I find funny, because even if you're like, yo, there's plenty of defeaters out there. I mean, you could bring up like logical problem of evil or moral problem of evil or just for starters. Again, that gets you to justifying your position. But then Darth will just switch the parameters. He'll change it and be like, oh, but did that actually disprove God for you? Like, I mean, that's what convinces me. That's what justifies my belief that there isn't a God, or at least not a Christian God. Yeah. Because I don't think that those properties hold up, or because I think that whatever properties Christians are kind of banding around as being necessary for this God conflict with the existence of excessive evil, excessive cruelty. But yeah, he'll just try to change that around. I was like, oh, okay. So because your things in the world are unpleasant, you're going to use it as a justification for God can't exist. Like, no, that's not it either. All he's going to do is keep twisting this around, because if it's like, if you can justify your belief, he'll just be like, well, I don't care if that's what you believe or what you think. I don't want to know about your mind states. What I want to know is that you've got CCTV evidence that there's no God. Like, no, that's not where we started. Now, where are you going? This guy can't track. Nicola writes, a temporal fact is simply grounded by the relation of the subjects discussed. It's a temporal fact that I'm older than my brother. That is grounded by the relation of our respective ages. Yeah, well put. And the other point I was going to make, it just seems to me like, I don't know why more people don't bring this up. In most philosophical circles, I think, generally most philosophers, in terms of epistemology, tend to be fallibilists. The idea of being an infallibilist, in which you can't really know it unless you know it to be 100% true, is very much a minority opinion, and it seems to be the opinion of somebody like Darth and other precepts that tend to follow him. And I'm not sure why you would want to do that. I do kind of get it, because they can kind of remove themselves from it, like, oh no, I can be wrong, but Jesus, my co-pilot over here, he can't make a mistake. So meh.
Consciousness.
What is your defeater for the Christian God?
Consciousness.
Yeah, dude, listen, I'm about to kick your ass out of this room, okay? I'm
kind of interested to see where Taco would go with this. He's just saying consciousness.
Responded to your childish rant in a DM, and I expect an adult response in here. We're going to try one more time, okay? I'm going to shut up, okay? No, listen to me. Tonlock, hold on. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to shut up. You got 2 minutes. I want a clear adult answer. What is your defeater for the Christian God and the Christian worldview? Because if you don't have one, you cannot say nobody knows.
What? Why couldn't he say that? I think the point that he was, I'm actually kind of losing track of what point he was trying to get at him with. If it was one of these like ultimate declaration, like, well, if there's no God, there's no existence of universe or something like that. I don't know.
I presuppose the uniformity of nature, the natural laws that govern the world, and there is no violation of such.
Okay, is that a defeater for the Christian worldview?
No. This is bizarre to me. He's been huffing his own farts for too long. Because his whole point is, and I think this is interesting, because this is telling. Think about what this is, and consider that what Darth is doing is usually just projection. Darth thinks like, hey, I've heard this stuff about Christianity, and I'm a Christian, and I believe in general revelation and inferring God from creation, and reading the Bible to get it directly beamed into my eyeballs, and blah 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 blah. And so he buys it, hot mess and all. What he's going to do as an apologist is then go on the attack and be like, any other worldview I can put down. And because I can go through and put down your worldviews and take a great big Cleveland steamer on all of them, that means my worldview is true. And it doesn't. What's interesting is if somebody comes along and is like, I can poke holes in the Christian worldview all day long, Darth will just be like, does that make it true? And does it make it true in relation to whatever your worldview is? And what is your worldview, huh? What's your worldview? Show me your worldview and I'll poke holes right back. Like, that's not the problem. Really isn't the problem. And your ability to like take a look at somebody's whatever worldview or a religious worldview, religious outlook, bundle of theology, bundle of dogma, and just be like, I don't think that works, and that one contradicts the other one, and that wouldn't work because of this. And we're all here. We all like to nitpick. We can all do that. Doing that in relation to, well, yeah, you can do that, but from what worldview are you really doing that from? Because if you're not presupposing that your capacity to do that stems from Jesus, then it really follows that you can't do it at all. Because if there were no Jesus, there'd be nothing. Like, I don't know what that has to do with me having the capacity to sit around and say something that is as uncontroversial for Darth Dawkins as I don't think Islam works in a lot of ways. He'd have no problem with that. There's problems with the Quran. The Quran makes statements about the world and the universe that are simply observably and factually, and now we know better, scientifically incorrect. And Darth would be like, yep, therefore it doesn't hold up. But then that person comes on, the Bible does stuff like this too. The firmament, I mean, have you, the waters above? I mean, am I right? Oh, hang on now. Pump the hate brakes there. Mr. Anti-religion, Mr. Anti-supernatural. Like, wait, what? You were making popcorn and sitting down and with a big grin on your face when I was going after Islam and the Quran. But now as soon as I'm like, okay, you know what? Now it's Christianity's turn. And he's like, oh, hey, stay out of my camp, pal. You haven't read enough. You haven't read enough Van Til. If you'd read Van Til, you'd know better.
Consciousness is.
Okay. How is personal consciousness a defeater for the Christian worldview?
Oh, good.
Because of basically what you guys say is that we have a spirit, and we know we don't have a spirit. There is no weight, there is nothing, there is no spirit, right? So, and the way that we know that is through consciousness. So consciousness has been studied pretty extensively, and what we know about consciousness, as in me, as in, I mean, from the research with of the scientific uh, uh, studies that have been done on it, is that consciousness is linked directly to the electrical activity in the brain. When the electrical activity in the brain ceases, consciousness ceases to
All right.
exist.
Okay.
It is linked directly to the brain.
Good. I've heard it enough. Okay. So your defeater.
This is kind of similar to what Shannon Q did. But Shannon Q's, I think, was a little bit tough. I think that was a little bit harder for him to dismiss, because she was basically like, hey, well, if we got something that's separate from the brain, if we see changes in a person's behavior based on something that's physically happened to their brain, is that costing their soul something? You know, if they go from being a normal, well-behaved, abstemious, church-going individual, and then say catch a rod to the head, and then they survive, but it blows out a portion of their brain, and then they turn into an ill-mannered, foul-mouthed, grumpy, hard fighting, hard swearing, hard farting some bitch. What does that do to that person's soul? Because now you got somebody. I mean, unless they want to. Well, in that case, the person is damaged to a point where God's going to forgive that. Like, why? Where in Scripture does it say He's going to forgive that? Because the only real equivalent that I've seen in stories in the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, would be somebody acting out in a way that's basically antisocial. And I think for most of us would be a product of, like, clearly there's something going on there in terms of that person's mental health. And it's chalked up as a spirit. And Jesus lays hands on that person and drives the unclean spirit out. The person's fine. They get up, they wash their feet, put on a new robe, and they're off to the bank. It's weird.
Here is an appeal to empirical methodologies and their conclusions. Is that correct?
Empirical methodologies and their conclusions are the only thing.
Is your defeater for the Christian worldview an appeal to empirical methodologies and their conclusions?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in order for empirical methodologies and their conclusions to exist and to be intelligible, is going to require a framework of reality. Do you realize that?
No, I don't really think that does. I mean, other than the framework of reality, beginning with the fact that you can't deny your subjective experience without also affirming it at the same time. So don't bother. A framework of what you need is an operating system to tie all this stuff together. Now, you could choose Islam 1.0, but it's really in sore need of an update. What you want to do is go with Christianity 11. Christianity 11 has all of the updates and the plug and play capability to really add productivity and simplifies your way. It's a great operating system. Really, one could say it's the foundation of knowledge and productivity on the internet today. Christianity 11, folks, get it now. Updates will be numerous, large, and sometimes debilitating.
I'll go with you, sure.
Okay, now, what is the nature of reality that will provide for empirical endeavors? What is the nature of events?
These terms are so fucking vague. I'm not sure even where he's cribbing this from.
What do you mean by that?
Well, is there something about the array and plethora of events in the world that provides for empirical endeavors?
I don't know. Talk to me in stupid people.
Well, wait a minute. You were the one who said I'm stupid.
No, he didn't say you were stupid, Darth. He said what you said was stupid. I mean, God, come on, Darth. Jeez, be careful. Tyler West writes, if God exists and has revealed his perfect, infallible word through Scripture, then the Bible is inerrant and true. If P, then Q. The Bible has many errors, not Q, therefore not P. Modus tollens. Right. The problem is they're going to be like, hang on now. The Bible has no errors. Um, and then maybe be like, well, what do you think an error is? And who are you to say what an error is? What's your worldview? Are you operating at us? Are you coming at us from Islam 1.0? Or are you using that Linux for atheists shareware version, huh? That distro's a pile of crap. Everybody knows it. Just Christianity 11.
Talk to me and I don't care. Talk to me and stupid people. Talk.
Okay. Well, I want to know, what is it about the nature of all of the many events that take place? Okay.
What
all
events are you
around you.
talking
Listen,
about?
all around, listen to me. All around you and everybody else in the past, the present, and the future, there is a myriad of events that are taking place. You understand that?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Now, how does all of the individual events in the past, present, or in the future
He's going to step in something here, I think.
provide for the actuality and intelligibility of empirical endeavors?
That is not there. That is not what that means. That is not a necessary component for using empiricism to understand aspects of reality. This is running on some really strange things. Empiricism is not the end-all be-all of observation. It's great for scientific endeavors because it places itself, it puts an emphasis on testability, repeatability, observation, and falsifiability. You're looking to see if something repeatable is no longer repeatable. I'm grossly oversimplifying, but that's part of the scientific process. You create a hypothesis, you test it, you see if it holds in most circumstances, as many circumstances as you can find. Is there something that will make this break? That is the opposite kind of thing that, and the reason that you're doing that, you're testing it based on those myriad of events. Like, why is it that when people stand outside when it's raining, their clothes get wet? Well, let's test that. You have an observation. Is it the case that every time somebody stands outside while wearing clothes, while it's raining, that their clothes will in fact get wet? Is that what can we do about that to empirically justify it? Well, you can test for it. You can observe it, repeat it over and over and over again. I guess what Darby like, well, just because that's the case, it doesn't mean that there couldn't be a time when somebody stands outside and gets rained on. Like, that's what the empirical testing is looking for. It's looking for the moment it's no longer consistent. It's looking for that point that it breaks. Christianity is not looking for that. Christianity is looking like, well, hey, you know what? You see people walking around all the time. Everybody breathes, everybody eats, everybody poops, everybody has kids. Some people don't like kids, but everybody hates their in-laws on the holidays. Like, what establishes that reality? Jesus. Like, that's not any more rational, or it's just kind of looking for an easy answer. So this makes no sense to me, like what he's laying up here for Taco.
Because you told me that empirical endeavors and their conclusions are a defeater for the Christian worldview. Your position is that the Christian worldview is not the sine qua non. That's Latin for that which is indispensable. If the Christian worldview is indispensable, then it is true. If the Christian worldview is dispensable, right, and you can provide a defeater for it, then it's over.
Yeah, you can't. There's plenty of defeaters for it. Why would Christianity be? It's sine qua non, not sine qua non. Sine qua non. It doesn't make any sense that the Christian worldview would be indispensable. A classical god of theism might be, and that would be the thing that you'd have to argue for. Trying to say like, well, the Christian worldview is the sine qua non. The assumption of the Christian worldview is the necessary foundation for it's indispensable. Okay. So now explain to me the difference between Christians that believe in the rapture and those that don't. They're like, well, that's not a load-bearing aspect of Christianity. Some Christians will vary. Some Christians will differ on this kind of thing. Like, well, should they? The Christian worldview is the necessary foundation for knowledge. The assumption of its truth is the necessary foundation for knowledge. But there are two conflicting, in this situation, you have conflicting ideas about what's going to happen when Jesus returns. Is the kingdom of God going to be superimposed in this world? Will we rise up to meet him? Will believers rise up to meet Jesus and be whisked away into paradise, only for Jesus to later and then allow for a period of turmoil, the left behind, so to speak? That's the rapture, right? And it's a misunderstanding of what Paul wrote. But there's plenty of Christians that still hold to this. So how is the Christian worldview consistent enough to say that it is the necessary presupposition require, that grounds knowledge? This makes, that just doesn't follow. He's asking what ontology grounds his epistemology. It's the same question asked in many tedious ways. Yeah, and if anybody else comes kind of close to attempting to do the same thing, he'll say that it's either they're moving the goalposts, or that's category error, or something to that effect. Exactly. Yeah, it's the same tactic over and over. Exactly. Which Christian belief system? Catholic, Mormon, etc. J-dubs, anyone? Why shouldn't someone provide a dragster when deity could simply demonstrate its indispensability? Yeah. Which would be more fun. That would be a lot more helpful. Like, well, what you need to do is tell me why it's not. You need to show me why it is. Because I have and the reason I think he doesn't volunteer it is because of a lot of the things that he's going to say. Well, this is why Christianity is indispensable. What he'll do is, I think what he'll end up doing, what he would say to Nicola, because without God, you can't have anything. Like, no, that's not what you said. The Christian worldview is the sine qua non when it comes to intelligibility. The assumption of the truth of the Christian worldview is the necessary foundation. It is the sine qua non of establishing the truth and a foundation for knowledge and intelligibility. How is the assumption of the truth of the Christian worldview indispensable? Not why is God indispensable? Not why is Jesus indispensable? Not why is salvation? Why is that indispensable? Why is the assumption of the truth of the Christian worldview indispensable? Darth can't do this. Empiricism requires a foundation or framework for reality, but it has to be a local framework, not a framework for your framework. Ultimate framework can't just be assumed. Yeah.
I just did consciousness.
So in order to appeal to empirical endeavors as a defeater for the Christian worldview, to show that the Christian worldview is not indispensable, how does the myriad of events provide for empirical endeavors?
It doesn't. I just the way he's saying that sounds completely irrelevant. Like, for empirical endeavors, okay. So what about reality? Like, you can use empiricism on anything, and any empirical endeavor can be correct or incorrect. It can be truth revealing, or actually, usually I would say if it's truly empirical, it's going to be truth revealing in one way or the other. If you start a hypothesis and you think it's going to go this particular way, and the testing and repeatability shows that it's not, and it breaks down, then you know the truth, that this is not a consistent process. And that's where empiricism gets you. And that's it. This is Darth trying to front load onto Taco. Oh, you're just an empiricist. And what I'm going to do is show you that empiricism is not some kind of a catch-all epistemological framework that you can use to describe everything. Awesome. You know what? If Darth was honest and put it out there that way, I would have been like, I completely agree with you. Empiricism does not get you absolutely everything for every kind of knowledge, or search for answers kind of situation. That's not even the point of empiricism. Christians think that there are people out there trying to use empiricism to replace Jesus or faith or whatever this other kind of stuff is, and that's just flatly wrong. It's a way of thinking about things, and it's not the only way of thinking about things, and it's not the replacement of thinking about things from the correct Christian way, where we presume the truth of the Christian worldview. And that's the only way you can have a foundation for knowledge, my friend. Like, okay, empiricism would not care about that question. It wouldn't, unless you showed the mechanism, and then it would be like, okay, well, now you got a mechanism. Now maybe there's something we can observe. You've demonstrated something. Let's put it to the test. That's what empiricism can do. He can make this claim as long as he wants. But he has never subjected it to any kind of empirical rigor, and he won't. Nicholas says, I think by indispensable deity really means palatable, and it's entirely relative to his tastes. I think so too. Yeah, the assumption of the Christian worldview isn't even useful for empiricism, let alone necessary. Yeah. And it's funny to me that when Christians try to bring this up, and they're like, well, if it weren't for Jesus, you wouldn't have the brain and the reason and the laws of logic necessary to really even just ground the capacity to do empirical stuff. Like, okay, cool. So why are you now using something that God gave you as evidence for something that you should not, that is bad? It's wrong-headed to think this about empiricism. Like, you don't you understand that. Oh, this depends on I don't think that Darth gets this, but other apologists will. Well, you can't just replace faith in God or the knowledge of God with empiricism. Not trying to. What? I'm not trying to. So don't even go down there. That's not what I'm talking about. And they'll sputter and cough and, well, it just seems to me that if you look around you today, that's precisely what the secular world is trying to do. It's trying to replace secular and empirical and this and that, and it's trying to override our traditions and our innate knowledge, our innate experience with God. No, it's not. It's not. The easiest thing to tell these guys, I think, from time, you're just wrong.
I'm waiting.
Thinking.
Do you have an answer, dude?
There's Tone Loke, talking at us from what appears to be behind the veil or something. Behind the, is he underground? Thanks for the reminder, John. Scott Duke is here. Good to see you, Scott. Oh no, I'm late for Jeff. No, you're not that late. There's not that much going on. Why are 60% of stars named in Arabic, Dumpkins? Well, that's where you see it. That's where where the Islamic culture and the Muslim faith they aligned with the empiricists, and that was a devil's bargain. Another reason why Christianity is true. Christianity doesn't muck itself up with things like science and reason, unless they're trying to take credit for everything that reason and science gets right. Anything that humans do that doesn't work out, that's somebody else's fault. Don't blame that on the Mormons.
Crickets.
You see, while you're thinking, the Christian worldview is characterized that it is the indispensable viewpoint for the existence and intelligibility of all temporal facts.
It is not, and demonstrate that. If you act like, wait, how did you get there? How did you reach that conclusion? God. What does God have to do with the assumption of the truth of Christianity being indispensable to knowledge? How did you get that? Oh, God showed me. Oh, another revelation. How do you know that revelation is true? Oh, because it's part of God's nature. That's not what I said. That's not what I'm asking. You can appeal to God's nature until you're blue in the face. What does that have to do with the connection? How is God able to reveal to you in a way that you can know this kind of stuff, and you can know it without being wrong about it, when you can be wrong about anything else? Clearly, Darth thinks that Taco's wrong. He's a creepy atheist. He's lying to himself. He's confused. He's denying God and his unrighteousness. How is he capable of doing that? Demonstrate how that's capable. How he's capable of that, other than just he'll appeal to another component. Oh, that's your free will, or that's your sin nature. It's the noetic effects of sin, which Darth never really gets into, because that would make it seem like maybe it's not Taco's fault he's not a Christian. So just be like, oh, you're deceiving yourself. You don't want to admit. You just love the sin. Love the sin. You don't want to give it up.
But your view
in
is
your
that the Christian worldview. I'm not done yet. Your view is that the Christian worldview is.
I appreciate that, Taylor Ritz. By the way, that was a fairly succinct sum up of the Phineas Gage case. I always forget the guy's name, but yeah, I apologize for. Usually, my summaries are kind of crass and crude, and but succinct. Yeah, I'll take that. Thanks, JL. Let's see. Darth getting to Jesus from vague origins is a crawl with him. Reminds me of Zeno's paradox of movement. Before we get to Jesus, we get to need to get halfway there. But before we get halfway there, yeah. We need to get to morals, then to cognition, then to yeah.
Is dispensable. So what I want to know from you is, what is the ultimate nature of reality?
Oh, is that all?
And what is the nature of events that provides for anything, including what you claim are empirical endeavors? Because you want to believe that empirical endeavors can be accounted for and can be intelligible absent the Christian worldview.
Absent the Christian worldview or absent God? There are plenty of Christians that employ empirical endeavors, quote unquote, that use empiricism to reach their to engage in their studies, and would not assume that God is not real because of empiricism. This is interestingly, you think empirical endeavors can be justified? How? I want your explanation for ultimate reality. Otherwise, you have no justification in engaging in empiricism. Empiricism isn't established on that kind of framework. That's not how. It's not how and it shouldn't be. That's not how empirical. It's. This is just categorically wrong.
So
Probably the
explain to me.
uniformity in nature.
Okay. Oh, so you believe that the array or plethora of events constitutes causality and laws of nature? Is that correct?
Sure.
Okay. Now, by what means, without begging the question, without presupposing laws of nature, do you establish that there are laws of nature?
I don't.
As soon as these questions come up, it's really important to ask Darth Dawkins, do you think that those laws are descriptive or prescriptive? Let's settle that. And then to probably blow up and be like, I'm asking you, sir. Stop dodging.
I don't know if there are laws of nature, but
You just did. You just said there were.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. You said
uniformity.
You said the uniformity of nature is the same thing as saying laws of nature in physics.
Okay, but those are descriptive. Is Darth saying that what Taco means by that is that Taco believes that the laws of nature, the uniformity of nature, and physics are prescriptive? And you know what solves Zeno's arrow? Physics. And what is physics? Empirical. Checkmate theists.
So the laws of physics are.
Go try to argue that. You know they're the same.
How do you?
Why is Tonelok in a dungeon? Should somebody do like a welfare check on him? It sounds like he's coming from like he's been imprisoned somewhere. Tyler West says, it sounds like Darth is saying, in order to tell me why I'm wrong, you must first agree that I'm right. Yeah. I mean, I know you're being, a little sarcastic there, but in a way, the first thing that you have to do in order to do this is establish your own worldview that is comparable to Darth's, but it's a fool's errand, because Darth doesn't believe that there's any other worldview possible. So there's no reason for him to even ask this from the jump. What you need to do, skeptic or Muslim or Mormon or Hindu, is explain to me how your worldview, quote unquote, equipped with whatever operating system your religion claims to be, is capable of matching up with Christianity, and I'll tell you why it's insufficient. And it's like, okay, so you're really going to try to do this thing from a supposedly presuppositional apologetic mindset, when the presuppositional apologetic mindset is those worldviews are Christian. Everybody's worldview is Christian. The ability to assume things about reality, the ability to make inferences, our capacity to reason, they're grounded in one worldview. Anybody claiming to be outside of that necessarily, everything is presupposed off of that. It's never grounded. It's never demonstrated to be the fact. So anytime Darth is like, you need to provide me the alternative, like, no, what Darth is engaging in is what he calls worldview body doubleism. His own claim. Like, this isn't. It's automatically a bad faith argument if you understand where he's going with it. There isn't another worldview that's capable of doing this, so there is no equivalent, according to him. So why is he asking for one? Because he thinks that the other person is doing like, there, I have a better worldview. I'm doing the same thing Darth is doing. I'm assuming a worldview that provides me with all these goodies and reasons and makes me right, and I'm going to use that to inflict damage on the Christian worldview. And we're just in two big warships, lobbing cannon fire at each other. It's like, that is not what the other group is necessarily doing. There might be people out there that kind of approach atheism the same way. I'm team atheism. I hold to these beliefs. I reject those kinds of things. Maybe. I don't know why they would. Most people, I don't think, deconstruct that way. But let's say for the sake of argument, somebody like that is out there. That doesn't mean that they're right about that, and it wouldn't make anything that Darth's doing here any less dishonest. He's just assuming that these people are approaching quote-unquote worldviews the same way, because he's assuming that Van Til's right about this worldview thing. All these people have to borrow from my worldview, the Christian worldview, because it's the one that grounds all this stuff. It's the correct assumption. Okay. But they're wrong about the other things they tack onto their worldviews, and I'm going to show them why Christianity as a worldview beats all comers. It'll take them all on, wipe them out. Knock out in a minute. Like, okay. That's not the problem that most of these other people, they're not approaching it this way. And the way that Darth is presenting it to them implicitly is incorrect and dishonest from the jump. Give me the alternative world. Like, most of them are like, wait, what the hell are you talking about? The alternative worldview? I shouldn't have to provide one. What the hell are you even on? Darth's high on Christianity, boy. He's got JC in his veins.
You justify that there are laws of nature without appealing to means which presuppose laws of nature?
They do not. Nature presupposes its laws? Did he just kind of say that? Boy. Ronnie says, so what is your God, Mr. Atheist? Sir. Yeah. So what is your Jesus of Nazareth? Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what this is. You need to provide, and I think I've seen him do that, where he's like, okay, well, where's in your worldview, you might have everything. Somebody tried to lay out, no, I'm a Platonist, or I believe in this, or I believe in this other God. Oh yeah? What about the is your God self-revealing? Does it have a redemptive plan for man? He doesn't even bother to ask, like, does your worldview include something like sin? He doesn't even do that. He just automatically just starts projecting all the stuff from the Christianity, like, oh, well, it's missing this, this, and this. Like, you are aware that what you're doing right now is an external critique, Darth? Like, looking at my worldview and saying, you're missing things that my worldview has, therefore it doesn't work, is an external critique. You need to do an internal critique. Why is the skeptic's worldview, or the Hindu's worldview, or the Mormon's worldview internally inconsistent? And why is it that and the only reason that the reason Darth has entertained these arguments this way is because so many skeptics have gone in and used internal critiques to point out, well, okay, if your basic assumption is the inerrancy of the Bible, therefore God exists, but I can show you that there are errors in the Bible, so therefore that kind of breaks down the claim that you can just, it necessarily follows that we've got an inerrant narrative, which, therefore God. It's not an inerrant narrative, therefore it doesn't hold that there's necessarily a God because of this inerrant narrative. And they're like, oh yeah, who's your God? This is the best that Darth can do. But without a God in your worldview, or more specifically, without my God in your worldview, you can't even say that and make any coherent sense at all. Skeptic, like, but I did, and now you don't. So.
And by the way, I got bad news for you.
Presupposing laws of nature.
For a guy that's defending Christianity, and part of defending Christianity is the purpose of defending Christianity, to present the defense, is about presenting the good news, the gospel. That's what the gospel is, the good news. I don't hear Darth ever even use the phrase, this is nitpicky, but how often does this guy say bad news? He's got bad news for people. I've got bad news for you. You're wrong. I got bad news for you. You're going to hell. I got bad news for you, buddy boy. Until you have that come to Jesus moment where you drop to your knees in supplication, that bottoming out, that rock bottom moment, and you realize that you need Jesus to help you and forgive you and save you, well, you're going to the fiery pokey place. I'm afraid it's nothing but torture and you on a barbecue for the rest of the rest of existence. Okay. Did you want to tell me? Did you want to describe any of the good things about? I don't have time to talk about my subjective experience, and I don't have time to talk about Jesus. I'm here to tell you why you're going to hell, sinner. Like with Christians like this in the world, we don't need an eternal conscious torment place. We're living it right now. Thank you, Darth.
Really? Okay.
It just is.
So no. So in other words, eyesight does not presuppose that nature works in some regular ways.
I assume it would, because we.
Ronnie, I think you probably aren't really waiting, but I will tell you this: I don't have a Jesus of Nazareth because I don't really have a human sacrifice guy that dies for my problems. Somebody who's willing to like unalive himself to like forgive my mortgage or something. But what I do have an equivalent Holy Spirit. His name is Spooky Bedhair. There's good evidence that Spooky, at least in the cyber world, is omnipresent. And in that sense, it really is kind of a holy ghost. So, yeah, I'll get back to you on the Jesus thing. As soon as somebody is willing to suffer and or possibly experience the extinguishing of their own life to forgive me of, let's say, my student loans, then that person, my personal Jesus. Where you will eat naught but burning hot coals and drink naught but burning hot cola. Yeah. Which could be somebody's jam. But different strokes, I guess. But I guess that'll all get straightened out. Everything in hell, like either hell is personalized for all the things that make you miserable, or we're all just transformed into things that universally these things are all bad for everybody. Like I don't think anybody's going to be showing up in hell like they said it was going to be hot, but it is a dry heat, so I think I can do it.
You see upside down.
Now you've contradicted yourself.
I don't know where you're trying to go with this. But
did you just contradict yourself?
No, I don't believe I did.
Okay, good. So does eyesight, you just said we don't presuppose laws of nature. Okay. Can you please explain eyesight without appealing directly or indirectly to regularities of nature? Go ahead, explain eyesight.
So you've asked me a lot of.
What would that have to do with the indispensability of the assumption of the truth of the Christian worldview being the necessary foundation for knowledge? Whether Taco can give an accurate explanation for how vision works in a human head has nothing to do with the other. Nothing. At this point, I would just feel like, oh, because Jesus lets me see the porn I loved so much. Is that what you're saying? And then be immediately kicked. But it'd be a great own.
Questions, and I wanted to ask you guys a question.
No, notice complete evasion. Listen, dude, you're pulling the same crap that Jim Majors pulled. Now, you are evading my question.
Jim Majors? Is Jim Majors still running around in Discord debating this guy? I haven't seen or heard from him in a long time. After he got into some issues, there were some things that came up. Let's see. JL says, I like the version of hell where everything there is the second best of everything. I think that's hilarious. Yeah, like it's the same reality, but you can't really ever get anything good. It's like the best car. It's like it's like, I can't remember when they had them out. The Chevy Malibu Max, the disgusting, ugly square thing with a terrible transmission. Like that's the best car in the world. Like, oh, it's just a mediocre beige land where nothing really works great. Like the best show on TV, the best show of all time. Like you never get Deadwood. You don't even get you don't even get like The Office. The best show ever made was Small Wonder.
Now, you told me that the biblical transcendental reasoning is moronic and stupid.
It is.
Your position.
Well, no, that's not fair either, Darth. He didn't say that those things were stupid. He said what you said was stupid. And Darth is taking credit for saying, that thing that I said, it lines up perfectly with transcendental arguments and reasoning and all these other big brain stuff that big boys use when they come into the big boy arena and fight for real. And it's like, no, I'm pretty sure that's just the equivalent of, verbal diarrhea. And I don't think it's well thought out. That's not a great statement that you made. Darth's done this twice. You said I was stupid. No, I said what you said was stupid. Well, you said transcendental argumentation and this other thing are stupid. No, I said what you said is stupid. Now you're saying that what you said is directly equivalent to those things. If you believe that, then yes, I guess you can say that. But I didn't say that those things are stupid because I don't think you have those things correct. Oh, here we go. Shouty time. Yeah. He's getting loud. I wonder if when Darth says regularity is nature, he's actually making a switch to logicality, and he means like a thing being identical to itself is necessary, which isn't a natural law. Natural laws are things like gravity and shit. Why can't you have eyesight if those things are different? Yeah.
Your position is the Christian worldview is indispensable. That it is dispensable.
Yeah, it would be. Here's the thing that would really blow his mind. The Christian worldview could be dispensable, even though a God is indispensable. He hasn't made the connection. Like, okay, there's a God. Why is it indispensably Jesus Christ?
That means that you're going to have a worldview, okay, that can operate, can account for itself, and can provide for intelligibility without an appeal to the Christian worldview.
That's not a problem. What you'd want is an appeal to a God. Even that would be problematic, but
what I'm asking you to do right now. Are you going to do it?
I'm not going to answer the.
Why would you do that? This is the most transparently honest he's gotten about how stupid and dishonest this approach is. I want you to do the thing that you don't want me doing. Like, I don't have a problem with, like, Darth is assuming from the jump that the way he's approaching his quote unquote metaphysic is correct. And what you need to do is exactly match what he's doing. Like, no, I object to everything that you're doing structurally. I'm not going to engage you and just provide you what you're doing is comparing all other worldviews with an external criticism from your worldview. That's basically fallacious. And what you're telling me is that I need to do that. I'm not going to do that. I don't need to do that. You shouldn't do that. This is game over for Darth. He just bought it with this one. I'm going to play that back again. Even though
eligibility, that means that you're going to have a worldview, okay, that can operate, can account for itself, and can provide for intelligibility without an appeal to the Christian worldview. That's what I'm asking you to do right now. Are you going to do it?
This is how things work. We know this is how things work. This is what you absolutely have to have in order for things to work. So plug in those components with something other than my Christian God. Are you going to do that for me right now? Are you going to take the bait and do something that transparently stupid and ill-informed? Please go. Please do that for me. And then what, Darth? Then you're going to accuse the person of like, all you've done is just done a worldview body doubleism thing because you substituted in things that I don't like from my worldview. Even though, based on how he's setting this up, it kind of sounds like if Taka were to do this, he thinks the entire endeavor is misguided. I think this might be the closest I've gotten to thinking that maybe he knows this entire thing is complete bullshit. This is complete bullshit. Like, no, Darth. My objection isn't to the thing that you think is necessary, even though I do object to that. My objection is to your idea that no one can criticize what you're doing without making the same essential mistakes that you make from the jump. That is the problem that I have. Hey, folks, you can come in here and take shots at Christianity all day long. As soon as you establish with 100% certitude that the equivalent that you have of my worldview wins. All you have to do is demonstrate that yours is 100% certitude, that it does that with indispensable proof. Mine does it, even though he can't show the connections. He just says, the nature of my God reveals it to us in a way that we can't deny it. That is not a demonstration of how it's true. It just isn't. Categorically, that is not correct. That does not work. And he'll try to say, aha, unless you have the equivalent, you can't beat my worldview. Somebody can come in and just offer up the alternative. Well, the universe is conscious, and consciousness itself in some Deepak Chopra kind of way, and it's inevitable that it reveals its truth to us in these ways, and that's how we're able to rationalize this stuff. Oh, really? So it does reveal itself? Well, is it personal or impersonal? Then all of a sudden, the new external criticisms come out because your replacement God that he's insisting you provide will not match one-to-one the properties of the God he's assuming from the jump. So Darth is basically inviting Taco, please begin your wrong-headed criticism of my worldview by taking a completely asinine approach to presupposing a bunch of alternatives to mine and then doing what I do, which is an external critique instead of an internal one. Every one of you is wrong because you don't believe what I believe. That's all Darth is doing at this point. And he wants Taco to take the exact same approach. Are you going to do that? Well, then I don't have time to talk to you. That's the only way we can have these discussions, sir. Is two camps childishly insisting that their stuff is right and your stuff is stupid. Which is interesting because the only person to say that anything was stupid was Taco. He blatantly said that something Darth said was dumb. And now Darth is ramping up and getting shouty because it's time. He's getting close, I think.
I'm not going to answer the question.
Then you cannot. Then your claim. Please do not overtalk me. Okay, who's being intellectually dishonest now? You told me that the Christian worldview is dispensable. Okay, do you still stand by that?
Absolutely.
Good. Explain to me how you justify that there is causality and laws of nature in order to make sense.
I'm giving up this argument. You win. I don't care. I asked a question when I first came in here that I still want to answer.
So in other words,
Darth is interrupting and overtalking. I'd love to see Didi argue with a Taoist. Every question would have to be answered. If I could explain it to you, my answer would be wrong. Jesus promised I'm intelligent. What have you got? Yeah.
So now here's the thing is, I just used a series of questions to smoke out that your worldview, okay, is unaccounted for. Now, if the
no, it's not. His worldview, Darth, the entailment from your worldview is that Taco's worldview is accounted for by Jesus. It's accounted for by the fact that there is only one worldview, and it's the Christian worldview. And Taco, when he's making claims or making conversation, if he's intelligible at all, if he's even intelligible enough for you to show that he's wrong, he has to borrow from the Christian worldview, which is a stupid thing to say. You don't borrow from the Christian worldview. Everyone's in the Christian worldview. They according to Van Til, I almost said Von Helton, according to Van Til, but they deny certain aspects of it in their unrighteousness. That's me childishly summing up that component of what Van Til said. Maybe that was more of a Bonson thing, but I think Van Til's emphasis was more on the no, only one worldview. There's just one. Everybody else is also operating in this worldview. They just deny the components that make this worldview what it is and what it works. So asking for an alternative worldview to do this means that Darth does not understand the Van Tillian precept, because you should not be asking that. That apologetic method of demanding an alternative worldview is really more of a Bonson move, and it's dishonest from the jump. Because if there is a logical entailment to any of this kind of crap that Van Til was talking about, it's that everybody has the same worldview. It's Christianity, and even the atheist is affirming the Christian worldview every time they do something productive. Every time they make a claim, every time they make a discovery for science, every time they do something productive, every time something is happening in our world, whether we believe in God or not, we are affirming the Christian worldview. That is the old school precept apologist take. Bonson was the one who came up with, like, no, you're team A and I'm team B or whatever. No, they're team A, they're team Alpha, team, and you're team Omega or whatever there. You're at the bottom. You're the first loser. You tell me how your worldview matches up with mine, and I'll tell you why you're wrong from the start. That is not, that blows up the basic strength, if there is any strength to a precept apologetic. It's the basic idea that I can't help but affirm the Christian worldview, even as an atheist. My ability to declare myself an atheist is dependent on an assumption of the worldview around us. If the claim is to make any sense, I'm denying the existence of God, but I'm doing that. My ability to even express that idea borrows from the Christian worldview. It's a way to capture everybody in the same thing. And Darth doesn't see it. If Darth understood it, he wouldn't argue this way.
Christian, because I just asked you to count for it and you said you gave up.
Yeah, because I asked a question. I asked
All
a
right,
question.
dude, listen to me.
Came in here that still
My
hasn't-
patience is quickly running out with your dishonesty. You are being at this moment argumentative. But you know what? I'm going to be a nice guy. I'm going to pretend that you're not being deceitful. Now,
He's going to pretend for the sake of argument, Darth? Whoa. What is going on with Darth? Oh, he must have had his Wheaties that day. So you think that because there's a shared belief now the worldview is identical? Wait, are you asking me, Alex, or are you asking Darth? The issue would be for Van Til would be like anything that I don't need to get back into that. It's the weirdest crap. Is it just to make their dicks hard? Kind of. No, and I don't think that they do this. They won't say, like for Darth, he won't say that the worldviews are identical, and that's really kind of a trick. Because a trick that I don't even think he understands he's pulling. Like you have a different worldview because your worldview has things where you're asserting like there's no God or you don't believe in it or you're an agnostic or whatever. So it's a completely different worldview. That's not it. Those are the components of the worldview where a person is just denying what's going on. The actual worldview, and this is where the ontology and epistemology thing with Van Til got blurred all to hell and back, was that no matter what you did, you affirmed God. I asked Darth this years ago. I don't understand how you're saying that I'm not asserting like I need to when I would invoke a fact, I need to invoke God in order for that the invocation of the fact to make sense or something like that. Like no, the fact itself, if the ontology is correct, the fact that I'm making a claim, a truth claim, and that truth claim has any kind of bearing on reality, and it is true, that would be a confirmation of the existence of that God. It would be affirming that God. It just automatically would. And when I told Darth that, he got confused and shouty.
I want to know, since the Christian worldview is not indispensable in your view, it's not necessary. Okay. Okay, good. What's the worldview that you're operating from?
Naturalism.
Okay. What is naturalism? Does it include matter, energy, causality, and laws of nature?
This is just similar. Okay, did naturalism die on the cross for your sins? No. Get wrecked.
I believe it is. I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't want to. Like I said, I had a.
I don't know what. I mean, Taco doesn't. I don't know how often Taco talks to these guys, but yeah, at this point, like, there's no point in talking to this because Darth is just going back over and over and over again. He's like, okay, well, you need to show me how naturalism is point by point, component by component, equivalent to the quote unquote Christian worldview. And we can go through this ad nauseum, and I will show you why naturalism doesn't line up with Christianity, doesn't offer the same things, and therefore doesn't work. And then you'd be like, okay. Now, can you point out, you probably read about these, what are some of the internal inconsistency to a naturalist worldview? Like, has Darth looked into that? Has he looked into critics of certain naturalism, philosophical frameworks and theories and said, oh yeah, well, some of these people bring up these arguments. No, that's not what he's doing. He's not presenting some kind of philosophical internal critique. Well, this is sort of like the naturalist framework that we can work with, and here are multiple critics of naturalism as a worldview, as a philosophy. These are the things. Most of them are presenting their complaints by doing an internal criticism of the philosophy, working within its logic and its structure to show where it might contradict or break down or where it's incomplete. Darth doesn't attempt this. Darth's not like, okay, show me how naturalism is equivalent to Christianity, and I will prove to you that it's not, therefore it loses. So I'm just going to engage in an external critique where I continue to hold Christianity to be the standard by which nothing else can ever really rise to any level of equality, which is true because any component that you bring up, he will always introduce either a new angle on something on a property he's already covered or introduce a brand new property that you hadn't considered.
The question that I wanted answered at the start.
Okay, dude, I'm about to kick. I'm about to kick. Listen to me. I'm about to kick and ban you from this room, which I do not want to do. I sincerely and truly do not want to do this. I'm bending over backwards being patient with you. Now, in order for you to say that the Christian worldview is not true, that it is not necessary, the non-acceptance of the Christian worldview entails a de facto denial of the Christian worldview, and there is an implicit claim that your worldview that you are speaking from provides the prerequisite transcendentally.
Why would it need to? He's assuming that transcendental has been covered and established.
For the actuality of facts and the intelligibility of facts. Now,
that's just him insisting, like, if it doesn't match up with what I've laid out, this is what's necessary. It needs to match my presuppositional apologetic, grounded in a transcendental argument for the existence of God, combined with all of his with his special revelation, his personal relationship with humans, his unquestioning, undeniable nature. Until you can show that this is directly equivalent to my God and this worldview in every single category, I don't have to accept it. When instead the problem, this is just to shield him from having to deal with, like, okay, Darth, how did you get from the ontological necessity of a creator God to the absolute indispensability of the assumption of the Christian worldview as a foundation for knowledge? How did you make that jump? Because just because I could be like, yep, there's got to be a creator God, I don't have to reach the conclusion that that God necessarily is Christian. The only way Darth has ever made the attempt to clear that up with people is to insist that his God has a special revelation, the Bible, which lays out all the properties of that God, and they can't be denied because the narrative is inerrant and the properties are exhaustive. It tells you everything that you need to know about this God, and it's everything that's required in order to make reality work, and Christianity's great, and Christianity's super, and Christianity can take on all comers. So get wrecked, loser. You know, you can come at me with Buddhism, you can come at me with Hinduism, you can come at me with Judaism. I don't give an F. There's no reason why Christianity is, you could think that Christianity would ever fail. Cool. How did you get from the existence of a creator God to the strength of Christianity, other than just saying Christianity's got these things that I like? How did you get there? What's the necessary connective tissue between the two things? He doesn't have it, and he can't demonstrate it. No Christian can. It's the separation between, like, deists, theists, and other believers. Like, yeah, I think that there's something that created the earth, whether or not it's involved or not. And then the theist is like, no, I think there's a creator being that's watching out for us and maybe kind of guiding things. I don't know which one it is or anything like that. I'm like, no, it has to be Christ. Cool. All of you have some work to do. The deist has the least amount of work to do. It's better to be a deist. Just an appeal to laziness. Imagine your thought process as if that were really true. I, therefore God, am going, therefore God, out, therefore God, to, therefore God, the store, therefore God. Exactly. All of these facts have to be, substantiated, instantiated, grounded in God. Oh, Skeptics and Scoundrels is here. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us live. Edging on Saturdays with Dee Dee and Jeff. Yeah, these ones always go long. Sorry about that.
What is the nature of reality? What is its ultimacy?
Some simple questions for you. What's the nature of reality? What's its ultimacy? Explain the origins of everything and why they're all grounded in Zap Brannigan.
I don't have any idea, dude.
Then if you don't have an idea, then you have no grounds to speak about anything.
You don't either, though. That's
Okay.
what I'm trying to get at.
Do you understand? Do you understand? You've just committed the tu quo que fallacy.
What?
Do you know what that is?
Big time.
Can I have one
Big time? What?
question?
Do you know? Listen
Can I
to
have
me.
one question?
Listen, dude. I don't want to ban you from here. You've just committed.
It kind of sounds like you do. Actually, I don't know if he can ban. The reason I think he's saying this is because Taco's a mod, and runs, like I said, he runs that other channel. I think he's somewhere up in the server for that one, and so the only thing that Darth can do is just ban him from his channel. But if he does that, he knows that Taco has access to a lot of other channels on the politics server. He can go in there and just be like, Darth is being a whiny bitch. Darth likes it when he can cast somebody out of the server completely. That way they can't go in there and talk to other mods and badmouth and be like, look, we were trying to have a conversation and Darth got all shouty pants and lost his cool again. I'm sure the other mods know that he does this, but. And also, before I wrap things up here, because I don't know if this is going to get any more productive. Bridge the Divide said, Jefferson Spatchak tomorrow is going to be fun. Yes, that reminds me. I'm going to post the link to this. Even though Sundays are usually not great, fortunately, JL told me about this well in advance and was nice enough to invite me on. He is doing a thing called Stage of Reason. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, JL, but I think you'd mentioned that your goal was to do this like once a month, I think. And so I'm going to post it here. And there it is in the chat. And that's going to be happening tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, 10:30. It says 10:30 a.m. my time. And I'm in Eastern time. So yeah, it's going to be a panel. It was the first time I'm joining them. Like I said, JL was nice enough to invite me on. And so, yeah, Stage of Reason. I will try to be as reasonable as possible. At 10:30 in the morning on a Sunday, I can't guarantee anything. I might just start like foaming at the mouth and screaming, like we atheists do, But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It should be fun. So I will definitely be there for that, and that's the link to it. It's over on JL's Bridge the Divide channel. So if you're already subscribed to that, it will pop up. But otherwise, that's the link to the show specifically. So yeah, it's going to be fun. All right, let's see here. Yeah. Alex, can you ground the accountability of intelligibility in the fundamentality of ultimacy or not? Can you confirm or deny the ultimacy of bread? All you're doing is not giving me bread. Yeah, spoken like a duck. Todd's already on it. So Todd already gets where this is going. No, that's not how the tu quoque fallacy works, dum-dum. Further, even if so what? He's not trying to prove he's right about anything. He's simply not accepting your claim. Yes, yeah. And this is and Darth constantly does this. If somebody comes in and just starts off from the beginning saying what I think Taco needs to say, more people need to. I think that's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. Try harder, Darth. Do something for it. Darth wants to turn it into, oh, you got something better? Well, you need to provide it, and you need to defend it, and you need to prove it to 100% certainty. No, I don't. I'm here to wreck your party, not provide an alternative place to party. I'm here to be a killjoy. I do not have alternative joy to provide. I mean to misbehave and not provide a better alternative or some better framework for how people should behave. I came to be contrarian.
Committed the tu quo que fallacy. Do you know what that is?
No.
The tu quoque fallacy is not. It is not when somebody's like, yeah, okay, we're both in the same boat. Somebody acknowledging, like, look, based on what you're telling me, I can't do this. What I'm getting from this is neither could you. You couldn't do it either. That is not the tu quo quo fallacy. The tu quo quo fallacy happens if somebody does something kind of dishonest, or you try to justify doing something fallacious or dishonest or otherwise, and justify it in the fact that the other side does it as well. That's a tu quo quo fallacy. Not making the observation that no, you're wrong. That's not it. Or hey, we're in the same boat. Neither one of us has the capacity to do this thing. That is not. That's just an observation. It is not a tu quo quo fallacy. If you can't do something smart, do something right. Shepherd book. I'm glad somebody caught that. I mean to misbehave line. That is from Serenity or Firefly. Is that in the movie or the show? I'm pretty sure it was in the movie.
No.
It's Latin for a meaning you too. You're saying you have the same problem that I do. What is the problem that you have that you accuse me of? What is your problem?
I don't.
The basic definition. The interjection is you likewise. Retort made by a person accused of a crime, implying that the accuser is also guilty of the same crime. That's not what he's doing here. It's much more specific than that. A great example of a person who consistently uses the tu quo quo fallacy is former President Donald Trump. He uses it all the time. In fact, he's running on the fact that what we need to do, his bid for presidency is, I'm sorry to get into politics about this, but this is a claim. His bid for policy for the presidency is being undermined by the fact that he believes that Trump's Justice Department is actively going after him with these lawsuits, even though many of the lawsuits were actually filed by states. There's the one from the Justice Department, the federal, the Jack Smith one. The other three are state-based. There's a two federal. I think it's just one federal and three state. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Anyway, but these cases are being done as election interference. And what his allegation is, and he's stated this unequivocally, Biden has weaponized the Department of Justice to interfere with my chances of getting reelected. It's political interference, basic claim. And he's also said that he, when he gets into office, will weaponize the Department of Justice to go after his political enemies. This happens quite a bit. It's really interesting too, because when I hear people actually when they do kind of the man on the street interviews with people who are Trump supporters and stuff, and they ask, well, what do you feel about this thing that he did? He said this thing that sounded bad, or he is accused of doing this horrible thing. What if it's true? What if it's true? Will you still vote for him? He's like, yeah, because the Dems have done so much worse, or the Dems have done it too. That's a tu quo quo fallacy. At least I like. It's odd to me that a lot of them seem to be really they seem to be very it's whataboutism. Yeah, exactly. Bridge the divide, put that in there too. Or GOP tactics. Yeah, lately it has been GOP tactics. And I think it's kind of grounded in a kind of a really poor understanding of sort of reciprocity. Like you get, the idea, because there's a difference between kind of holding to like, well, you do it, so I'm going to do it too, kind of thing. That's kind of slightly different. That's being reciprocal or reciprocating. That's not necessarily a tu quo quo fallacy. Tu quo quo fallacy is about the justification of it because, well, yeah, I may be doing something wrong, but they did too. And that doesn't really hold up. Now, there is a situation where I'm like, wait a minute, who are you to make fun of this person for their appearance? Well, I picked on their appearance because they spent the last 15 online appearances making fun of people. If you do that, as far as I'm concerned, it's just sort of a reciprocal thing. Look, if you're going to make fun of somebody for the way they look, they're too skinny, they're too fat, they're too young, they're too old, and you don't even really know them, and you're just making superficial judgments about them, you open yourself up to being judged superficially. Is that a tu quo quo fallacy? Maybe it is. I don't care, though. I'm still going to call Darth Dawkins fat and ugly. I'll do it. Even though the fat thing I really don't think is great. The ugly thing he can't help. Because that just happens with time. No, I'm going to call him a crusty asshole. Because those things are things he can help. He's an angry, crusty asshole.
I don't have one.
Okay, all right, bye-bye. You're done. See you later. You are a complete moron.
Such an enemy of...
I did circular reasoning. I just had one question.
What's your question?
2 federal, 2 state. Thank you. DC and Florida trials are federal. The one in Florida is because one's a documents case and one is Georgia's election interference. There's the one about the falsification of records, but I think that's state level too, isn't it? These got so blurred up because then there was also the civil case between with E. Jean Carroll.
Bro.
Oh, Doc, let him ask his question. Please let him ask it.
Yeah, hold on. Let me ask.
No, we're done. We're done. His mouth has been duct taped. He showed himself as a complete moron, and he continues to shoot his mouth off. Okay.
Well, you don't have to deal with him. Let me talk to him then.
Tone Lock, well, let me go at him. Well, first, Tone Lock, you need to be less concerned about chatting at people online and more concerned about getting out of the basement someone has locked you in. Like it's almost like the microphone is outside the window and he's just yelling at it, and we're catching the vibrations through the glass. Okay, Florida is classified documents case. That's right. DC is the election interference. Okay, the DC one is the one I seem to hear the least about.
Yeah, at least keep him muted if don't keep him from the.
Okay, against my better judgment, I'm gonna rip the duct tape off of his stupid mouth and let you guys speak with him.
Aw, it's nice. Papa bird letting baby birds eat.
He's been totally beaten to a pulp and shown the buffoon that he is. Okay, let me type it.
I agree. I mean, if you just direct that at Darth.
Did he come from YouTube or something, or how did we get? You said did you say he messaged you, Darth?
Oh, what's this?
He kind of sounds familiar, but
Have fun, guys. This guy's a moron.
Yeah, you keep poisoning the well, Darth.
Okay, so Taco, what was your question?
The same thing that I asked prior.
what's the question?
Just what are so there are multiple things you presuppose are a necessary thing for a intelligible human experience. That is the first question I asked, and the thing I've been asking this entire time. I want to know what you're presupposing there.
Okay. A presupposition has different nuanced meanings in different contexts.
But not for a presuppositional apologetic. The presupposition being made is that we all make assumptions about the nature of the world around us. It's sort of the grounding of our worldview. It's kind of interesting that, like, I don't know if Van Til or Bahnsen really deal with this, but one of the basic kind of even though they don't like axioms, but the basic axiomatic kind of assumption that you can make is your subjective experience. It's happening at least in some way, shape, or form. If you attempt to deny your subjective experience, you inadvertently and inescapably confirm your subjective experience, because your subjective experience now is defined by how you are attempting to deny that it's occurring. So you're kind of locked into it. That's a good one. It's kind of difficult to erase that one. That's a good thing to just sort of assume. That makes for a strong assumption or presupposition. The thing that these guys are trying to do, and they've gotten closer to actually saying this, the indispensability of the Christian worldview. What about the assumption of the truth and indispensability of the Christian worldview makes it the indispensable foundation for knowledge? What about how is that being done? Like, you have to assume the truth of Christianity before you can then make and what does that mean for that? Does that mean that every time, now I know what Van Til meant by it. Every time I say the sky is blue and the grass is green, I'm affirming the existence of a creator God who Van Til believed necessarily must be the God of Christianity, the God of the Christian Bible. Why it's necessarily the God of the Christian Bible and not another kind of God, I have never heard a good explanation for. I've only heard Christians say, well, they'll appeal to what they call special revelation. Because when you're wandering around in general revelation, you're like, oh, the sky is nice today, and it's blue. That's right. Wink. And Jesus is out there like, thanks for the shout out and the thumbs up. And then you're like, wait a minute. I didn't mean you, thumbs down. I meant Allah. Whoa. Now what do you do? Oh, well, it can't be him. The Quran goofs up things about stars and stuff. I'm like, what? What? Well, the Bible makes claims about the firmament. Well, no, that's because you're an ignoramus and don't understand how to read ancient Hebrew or understand it in context or understand that it's metaphorical or understand that any of these other apologetic things that they throw at it. The basic presupposition that's being thrown out here by these guys is not connected to anything demonstrable. They just insist, well, it's got to be connected. It's got to be a God. Cool. Why? Well, because without a God, you wouldn't have anything. Not an answer to my question. That doesn't solve the epistemology issue.
When we talk about presuppositions, we're simply talking about what is the fundamental and
Yeah, you stay out of this, Maya. There's only one God, Jeff. Duh. I think it would be better if we had like I really do think if they're right, there is a creator being necessary for reality. I really hope it's beings. That way you can really get into you can have some fun. Like I'm team Zeus and you're team Athena or whatever. Like I probably wouldn't be on Zeus's side.
an ultimate starting point in one's worldview. Okay,
Yeah.
it
And
does
that's what I'm
not.
asking.
I'm answering you. Shut your mouth, moron. Now, the ultimate commitment.
Remember when Darth was going to let them talk to him? He wasn't going to talk to, quote, this moron anymore. He was going to remove the tape to allow the kids to pick the bones off this guy. And he's right back into it. Like, this is how big a narcissist he is. He's like, shut up and let the kids have a turn. Shadowhouser, the question on the deck is, can a former president be prosecuted for what are categorized as official acts while in office after he's left? Something like that. Well, that's what the Supreme Court's going to take up at the end of April. Yeah, whether or not these prosecutions can go forward in the first place. But the 4 cases that have been in motion, 2 are state and 2 are federal. So,
From which we speak from, okay, are the principium, right, or the irreducible primary in the Christian worldview is God himself and his property and attribute set, including his creation and plan of salvation.
cool. That's necessary for ontology. That's necessary for reality, right? All of reality was created by this thing. Without it, there'd be nothing. Why is the assumption of the truth of the Christian worldview the indispensable foundation for knowledge? Knowledge, not stuff, not reality, knowledge. Because there's clearly some issues with human epistemology that come up when we're talking about people's knowledge claims.
When we say that we presuppose it, that does not mean that we just say, well, I imagine this, and this is what makes the most sense to me.
Yeah, sorry about that, Shatterhouse. I noticed that you were responding to Michael up there at the top, or to Cascade rather. Oh, and thank you for the super chat, Wilberforce. Just because I haven't had to buy groceries or anything for a month, lol. Well, I appreciate the $5. Yeah, if it's at all an issue to send me super chats, do not feel obligated to do that. But I do appreciate it. It's very generous. I appreciate it.
That is not our position. We simply state what God has communicated for himself, that he himself is the irreducible, indispensable primary from which all temporal facts derive and can possess their intelligibility metaphysically. And we know this because of his self-disclosure through natural and special revelation. Now, if you deny this by virtue of non-acceptance, you will not be able to deny it because it's going to require.
Yeah, jail. Doesn't that assume the information came from their gun? Yeah. This is why it's always just incredibly childish when they bring up that whole like, well, if there's no God, then you wouldn't be able to make sense of anything. Like, bro, you started off that by saying, well, we believe that a God is a necessary creator and foundation for all of reality, and without him, you would be a babbling moron. Like, huh? It's like saying, like, well, we believe that, there's only one car company in the world, and that car company is the necessary foundation for the existence of all cars that you have the capacity to drive and will ever drive ever again. And without that, the wheels would fall off. No, there'd be no cars. Like, what are you doing? Maya says, that's rich coming from a guy who thinks God speaks through trees. Yeah. Oh, Beck is here. Good to see you, Beck. I haven't had to buy bus fare, smokes, or booze either. My hotel didn't allow the latter two. It's amazing how much, yeah. If you abstain from both of those things, you end up saving a ton of money.
A worldview that provides for reason and affirmation and denial, which means you're going to have to start at the
including the denial of that God itself. So think about that. Your capacity to deny as an intellectual endeavor is entirely, necessarily, indispensably connected to the God of the Bible. Why would you do that? So you can't then turn around. Darth now cannot turn around and say, hey, you atheist who deny the existence of God, you can't do that. It's irrational. It's unreasonable. It's insane. It's absurd. No, it's not. You just said that my capacity to deny was grounded in the existence of this God. My ability to assert facts about anything or make up stories is grounded in the existence of this God. You haven't shown how it is. But now that you've done that, literally anything I do with my brain is up to God. My capacity to lie to people, bear false witness, all of those nasty sins that I can do with my mouth and my brain, those are now all on God. God grounds every horrible thing that we do. He definitely grounds natural evil, right? The fact that Adam and Eve, unless you're one of those Christians, well, you know what? Lions wouldn't eat lambs and earthquakes wouldn't happen if Adam and Eve had just stayed away from that part of the produce section. Well, they didn't, and now Grandma died in a flood. God, this place sucks. I can't wait until he comes down and fixes it. Right. But in the meantime, like, well, no. This Christian's out here being like, no, your capacity to even think a thought like that is based on God. Really? So has Darth ever considered the implications of what this means for one of the right wing, especially Christian nationalist kind of right wing bugaboos, the child offender, the child abusers out there? What's going on in their heads and in their actions that's doing that? Isn't that dependent upon God? And isn't everything that they're doing part of God's redemptive plan? So every horrible thing that happens is part of affirming the God world. Even though this world is far from what he wanted, this is no longer a perfect world. But it must be perfect, right? Because it's God. I'm getting lost in this. It's part of God's redemptive plan for man. So is it perfect or is it not? See, this is what secularism gets you.
the irreducible primary, that which is indispensable, that provides for all temporal states and their intelligibility, including logic, truth, reason, affirmation, and denial. So in order to deny, I'm going to explain to you why. Is because if you do not tell us what your irreducible primary is, then you will be invoking what are called uninterpreted facts that are simply brute facts that exist in a chance world. And in a chance world where you do not have an identifiable, irreducible primary or ultimate, okay, then all you have is an array of chance occurrences. And
why is that? If you don't have this, then all you have is random chance. How is he justifying that? Other than just trying to, well, that necessarily follows from the properties of the thing that I said is necessary. I don't see how they would be. Only, like I said, I'm not doing this on purpose. They have this thing now where basically they give me the ability, like, if there's ads are going to be inserted if I'm monetized. The only thing that they let me pick is whether I want there to be a lot or there to be a little. I always select a little, like how to put in the least, especially when I'm live. So if you're getting a lot of ads, keep in mind, this is YouTube's conservative setting. That's what they call it. That's the one I always pick. It's the only time I select conservative on nearly anything. I want a conservative amount of ads placed when I'm live. It's the only option that they give me that seems to be work. I think the biggest one, it should be excessive, or maybe one is just like all ads, no content. YouTube is, I think, fundamentally broken. Jed, the why is just the claim again, right? And Alex, this is already an appeal to consequences. Yeah, well, if not for that, then it would just be this, and that'd be terrible. Why?
Chance world, because then contingency will be ultimate and not something that is ultimate, that is the irreducible primary. Okay?
The chance world is what we have, though.
Okay, now what you're not realizing is maybe you're not understanding how I'm using the word chance, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
If somebody fires a pistol in the air on July 4th to celebrate and it ricochets,
Been known to happen, especially in America. Jefferson Spatchcock, conservative YouTuber. Accurate, because I can always say, hey, when the ad thing comes up, I always select conservative, and YouTube puts it in there with a capital C. MAGA.
and then it finally hits somebody, we would say, oh, well, he wasn't trying to shoot them, but because the bullet being fired because of the laws of physics and the intersection, the intersection of other events resulted in the final outcome, when we call that chance. That's not what we mean by chance, because all of that would be deterministic, right? Since you do not have
The chance world would be then like, well, on the same day that Yosemite Sam fired a pistol into the air to celebrate the 4th of July, he pulled the trigger and a bullet came out and it went up into the sky and the gun made a noise. Next to him was another individual who pointed his pistol to the sky, pulled the trigger, and a bubble came out. That's what I mean. I mean wacky, nonsensical, anything goes. Blue sleeps faster than Monday kabloom. I just, I've really got to I got to go to the bathroom. What's going to the bathroom? Well, I went to the bathroom and then a unicorn came out of me and then I turned into a giant talking snake. What's talking? My head folded back and out popped a lovely woman who sang to me on a guitar made out of a bed. Like, that's what we mean by chance. No. No.
An identifiable ultimate or irreducible primary that provides for all contingent states, okay? Then what you have is a world of chance where there is no final reason for the array of events around you.
When you do start getting pillow or Trump ads, let me know. I'm be really curious, because if YouTube starts thinking I'm conservative, the algorithm truly is broken.
There isn't.
You will did everybody hear what he just said?
Yeah, he said there's no.
Did everybody just hear what he just said? Now here comes the coup de grace. Or the array of events around you.
There isn't.
Did everybody hear what he just said?
I didn't.
There isn't.
Did everybody hear what he just said?
He said there isn't, though.
Yeah, he said there's no.
Did everybody just hear what he
Tone Look was trying to answer, you crank.
just said? Now here comes the coup de grace.
No, what did he say? God, he's bad at this.
Since the outermost layer of what you want to conceive of reality is simply spontaneous occurrence, chance, then all you have is an entirely relativistic system for which you can derive no intelligibility. It's game over, lights out.
All your assertions are arbitrary.
So what I'm saying is
That doesn't follow. That does not follow. Your assertions would not be arbitrary. They would either be affirming a reality created by the God you're talking about, or they're affirming a reality that exists independent of some creator God. It could be deterministic, but it doesn't have to necessarily be absurd. And if everything else being equal is being applied from the properties of this God, the entailment isn't I'm absurd and reality is absurd around me because I just don't believe in God. That doesn't follow. If that God actually doesn't exist, there's an absence of everything. everything. But there isn't. There's at the very least subjective experience, my subjective experience, which again, I cannot avoid, because when I try to deny it, I inadvertently affirm it. Maybe not even inadvertently, but anyway, when that happens, even that little bit of reality being there, how, if the God wasn't there and my subjective experience is somehow foundationally dependent upon that God, the absence of that God would mean the absence of my subjective experience, not the rearrangement of my subjective experience into absurdity. That does not follow. Therefore, it does not follow that you would have a world of chaos without God when you're trying to make the ontological claim that without a God, there wouldn't be any kind of reality to begin with. I cannot believe these guys are still fucking this point to death. They keep missing the target with this.
Or what I was getting at is that
Did you
I've
understand
asked
what
the
I
same
did you
question over
did
and
you
over and it still hasn't been
understand?
answered.
Did you understand what I just said?
Yes. Now I asked the
Okay,
same question
explain
over
it back
and
to me. Explain it back
You're
to me.
trying to say that I have nothing to
Okay,
understand the
listen,
world.
shut up. Now, why is it
I'm going to read these two comments from Alex and then replay that back, and I think we're going to end it there. It's all relative equals no coherence. Argument, please. Exactly. Well, it's all relative. Nothing's coherent anymore. How'd you get there? Other than to say, well, relativity means that's just what relative, because then we get into relativism and then nothing makes any sense anymore. I'm like, no, it still makes sense. It's probably just not what you wanted. I'm going to keep this up for a minute. This is uniquely bad. It absolutely is, because of this classic bit from this is. I think I need a sound clip of this.
Okay, explain it back to me. Explain it back
You're
to me.
trying to say that I have nothing to
Okay,
understand the
listen,
world.
shut up.
Explain it back to me. Explain it back to me. Starts to repeat the question, then tells him to shut up. Classic.
Explain it back
You're
to me.
trying to say that I have nothing to
Okay,
understand the
listen,
world.
shut up. Now, why is it metaphysically catastrophic to acknowledge that chance is ultimate? Why is it catastrophic?
It's not.
It really isn't. It's chance. Again, he was able to do this nuanced thing about like chance is in like the Mad Magazine kind of chance that you're talking about, a world of endless imagination kind of thing where nothing coheres from one moment to another. That's not necessarily chance. He just tried to rule out, well, oh no, if you have a situation where a man fires a gun into the air and the bullet moves over and it lands on the hood of somebody's car 20 miles away, well, yeah, sure, that's chance, but that's deterministic, right? There's physics that cool. So we can talk about chance in that sense. The why does chance in your sense need to be everything just turns into some kind of like absurdist nightmare? That it doesn't follow. Like, well, if it's relative, or even in this case, it seems to be, if it's deterministic, it could lose coherence. Like, if that's all that there is, I don't understand that. Explain it back to me. Starts explaining, shut up. Explain it back to me was a rhetorical command. Yeah, it was more of a suggestion than anything else. Can you explain it back to me? You can't. Shut up. Made in God's image for sure.
Okay, dude, you're not understanding this. Either you're trolling right now.
It doesn't
Listen
make
to me.
sense.
Listen to me.
What I'm saying.
Listen to me, folks.
This is fascinating. It really is. Taco's making just a basic appeal to sort of like humanity. He's saying, no, you're right. I don't understand it because what you're saying does not make sense. I do not understand what you're saying. And Darth just loses his cool and like, well, I've explained it to you like 14 times. No, you've insisted on things 14 times. You've insisted that this must be the case. But when asked, like, how are you getting there? Where are the connections? I'm seeing the insistence. I'm hearing the assertion of facts. I'm hearing lots of claims. What I'm not seeing is any kind of comprehensive connection between a lot of these claims. Just an insistence that they must be this way. Otherwise, things just fall apart completely. That ultimately seems to be what it is. It's either the Christian way, or you have Looney Tunes on acid chaos. Those are the only two alternatives that you have, even though that's not entailed from the reduction. If you cross off the Christian worldview, you wouldn't have Looney Tunes on acid style chaos. You'd have nothing.
Either this guy is as dumb as a bag of rocks, or he's trolling. Now, you asked me to unmute him in here, okay? And
Yep. Delinquent or deficient, right?
I'm smoking out. We got an argumentative little troll here, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt for another minute or two, and then I'm going to drop the hammer on him if he doesn't change his disposition. Now, in the Christian worldview,
oh boy,
we have God is ultimate. God is a personal agent who is omniscient, he is omnipotent, and he is always truth revealing, and he has a sovereign plan when he creates the world.
How do you know
creates
any
the
of
world.
this to be true?
I'm okay. Because through God's sovereign revelation.
that means nothing. That's just a dogma, a piece of dogma that's put in there, and they're like, oh, you know what? If you don't understand how that works, well, then I can't help you. Like, what about sovereign revelation has anything to do with bridging the gap between making the claim that a God is necessary for the existence of reality, and then making the claim that the assumption of the truth of the Christian worldview specifically is the necessary foundation for knowledge? How do you make the connection between the two? And if when somebody asks you the second question, they just go back to, well, because God's the necessary foundation for all of reality, they are moving the goalposts. They are losing automatically. They're not answering the question. And the closest they get to it, like, wait, hang on. How are you saying that assuming the truth of the Christian worldview is indispensable as a foundation for knowledge? How are you grounding that? Well, because if you didn't have God, nothing would make sense. Everything collapses into absurdism. There is no truth. There are no facts. Like, that doesn't follow from the non-existence of God. What follows from the ontological non-existence of God, if we're to take that to be true, if he's not there, then everything else isn't there either. How are you getting to absurdism from the inability, incapacity, or unwillingness to assume from the jump the truth of the Christian worldview as being indispensable for the foundation of knowledge? How do you get there? You will get crickets, or you'll get C part 1. God made everything. Like, nope. No.
Now,
How do you know that?
let me say, shut. You know what, dude? Do it one more time. You accuse me of badly behaving. I am trying to explain something to you step by step, and you are being a completely obnoxious jerk.
He's just
Okay?
explaining a concept.
I'm explaining something to you which you do not understand, and you're being obnoxious for the
I'm
purpose
trying
of
to argue.
interrupting
I'm
it.
trying to help you out on your behalf, man, but you're not giving me anything
Yeah.
to work with.
Now,
why is Toneloke yelling at it? He's trying to help Taco at this point. Maybe they've been chatting in the background somewhere, because they're not chatting on the chat that's going to. I kind of shrank this down. For those of you who have larger ones, you'll be able to see this. The reason I shrank this one down is just in case anything like kind of crappy comes through. I don't know. I haven't checked all of these to see if these are, sometimes the politics chats can get a little dark. And this one, I didn't realize this at first. This one is called the Church of Darth. Huh. Interesting. I'm wondering what Discord server this is. I can't make that one out. Debate Crucible? Oh, I got to get an invitation to this one. See how long I can get it get turned down.
I'm trying to explain to you the Christian worldview and what it entails, and to contrast that with what you are left with, okay? Because if you don't understand the Christian worldview when you think you do, right, then
Well, you're not exactly being forthcoming with what these concepts mean. You're just getting shouty about what they insisting that they're there. But then if somebody asks, like, what does that mean? How does that work? Darth just gets loud and like, I'm trying to tell you, it's the sovereign revelation of God. Like, what does that mean? I saw a bee today land in my coffee, and Jesus? What do you mean by sovereign revelation? I mean, it's inescapably true that a bee dove into some hot coffee this morning. My hot coffee ruined my breakfast. Therefore, the Bible's inerrant. Cool. I'm going to heaven, I guess. Skeptics and Scoundrels, have anyone reverse engineered Didi's argument flowcharts? I can't imagine he'd ever share them himself, despite all the souls it would most certainly save. Yeah, I don't think that's kind of interesting. No one's even done like kind of beautiful minded that either. With the post-it boards and the string. Maybe I should. I should do it like a whole series on that. Is Ton still a virgin? The question would be: is he still congratulating himself on it? Because that was like a big part of his identity several years ago. I don't know what it is now because he's as quick to ban me from anything that he's involved in as Darth is. So I really hurt his feelings, not on that point, but on his. Actually, it was kind of on that point because he was trying to say that because he's celibate and a virgin, he hasn't gotten anyone pregnant. He hasn't been spreading any STDs around. And I asked the simple question many years ago. Okay, what about the people who aren't celibate and also aren't getting pregnant inadvertently making someone else pregnant, or accidentally or intentionally spreading sexually transmitted diseases? What about those people? It went out of control. Well, those people are still gross. Flowcharts into the insanity of Darth's mind. Yeah. Jefferson says, I had a Jim Bob follower who wants me to go on Crucible. I checked them out. Lots of Red Pill and Coomer in their titles. Meh. Yeah, no, the Crucible, I don't know that this has anything to do with it. The Crucible, Jim Bob, and that's Andrew Wilson's channel, right? Or maybe he's not. I don't know if he's like a founder of. I'm pretty sure he is. He took credit for it in the Dillahunty debate. So they were growing fast and they're catching up on modern day debate. Yeah, they're horrible. Absolutely horrible. That's just some straight up MGTOW Nazi nonsense over there. Pretty sure a 5-year-old could recreate it. It's so juvenile that most of us just find it interesting. It really is just 2 points. God, and then you connect it to everything else. That's it. And then maybe the third point. Therefore, I'm right all the time. Never wrong. Yeah, Crucible is Andrew Wilson. Yeah, but yeah, Jim Bob. Jim Bob's funny because I don't know that Andrew Wilson is a young Earth creationist, but it sounds like Jim Bob is, which is it just makes everything about that group over there even more cringe than it was before. I tried to break down Darth's logic tree and came up with my own belief system instead of finishing it. Exactly. You just start like worshiping a block of cheese because it's just easier.
And you're not going to understand these metaphysical issues. Now, in the Christian worldview, we have God is the necessary prerequisite for all facts. God is the irreducible primary, not only for the existence of matter and energy, but for the instantiation of cause and effect and laws of nature and the regularity of nature. Okay? So in other words, when I drop a pen and it falls to the ground, it does so because God exists necessarily in the beginning, and he instituted laws and he maintains them continuing to this day.
Gravity is a spell cast by the biggest space warlock.
Now, when you dismiss that God has revealed himself in natural revelation and special revelation,
well, special revelation being the magic spells he casts that make pens fall from our hands down to the ground. Like, okay, so the fact that gravity works, which is deterministic, right? We are a life form existing on a biome created by biochemical reactions happening on the planet. The planet itself is an oblate spheroid falling through space, trapped in a gravitational pull of other celestial bodies in a rotation, and because of that rotation and its relationship in this free fall that we call, or and as we are being blasted, the galaxy, the solar system is being hurtled across the universe, is that it sort of traps us down here and keeps us comfortably pinned along with our biome to the surface of this oblate spheroid, and we can go to work every day and go to church and stuff. That's what does it. That was a spell cast by God. If you believe, if you understand the physics of how what at least the 20% of gravity, I think that physicists say we've got, and the other 80% they're still trying to figure out because dark matter throws a bunch of wrenches in the works. It is deterministic, even if a God put it in motion. The fact that when you hold a pen out and let it go, it drops to the ground, is determined by its physical relationship with the gravity that we experience on this planetoid. On another planet, you could let it go and it would fly away or zip across the, it would depend on something else. It would be determined by some other kind of physical constant, some other physical force acting on it. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a constant. Something new could come into place and change the rules. I've never understood this. Like, no, the reason it does that is because God did it. Agreed, if by what you mean God created a reality in which we exist on an oblate spheroid that is hurtling through space and time, bound up in the gravity of other celestial bodies, hurtling through space and time at an unreasonable speed in a crazy system, and that's what keeps us comfortably pinned here. Sure. But the way to hear Darth explain it this way is that, well, the reason you stub your toe is because God cast a spell, a toe stubbing spell.
Revelation, which we refer to as the Bible, right? Then what you are doing is you are denying a complete worldview. Now, anything you say after that is going to require not just simply a framework, it's going to require an irreducible primary or an ultimacy of reality that provides for all temporal states.
Sorry, I'm back. Skeptics read, if you can't ground deliciousness in the ultimate and necessary block of cheese, then you can't taste anything at all. Agreed. And a great foundation for a religion. Perfect.
Either you identify what is ultimate, or you say, I do not know what is ultimate. If you cannot identify what is ultimate, then what you are left with is a chance system.
No.
Where anything goes and anything is possible.
No. That does not follow at all. I can't identify what is ultimate. Therefore, anything goes. But anything doesn't go. So what is ultimate? I still don't know. Just defeated it. That's not even that clean a syllogism. It's not, I didn't even put it out as a syllogism. That just doesn't follow at all. How on earth is that supposed to? Well, if you don't know what's ultimate, then everything just, well, have you ever watched your favorite Looney Tunes drop acid? Like Daffy Duck on ayahuasca? Like, imagine that kind of society, my friend. And then also suspend everything we know about physics, or pretend to think that we know about physics. It was all a conspiracy. Jay writes, he's doing it again. Darth's claim just then entails that the cancer that is killing kids in hospitals is because God is maintaining that circumstance. Exactly. It means every case, he's making one of my points for me. Every instance of natural evil, like cancer in children, is necessarily God's plan. It's not only his maintenance, it's his doing. His energy has put it into place and is maintaining it. Therefore, child cancer, God. Yeah, Darth is confusing ontology with epistemology here. Yeah, and seemingly everywhere else too. I can't even try. Like, if you were to do a drinking game based entirely on it, this would kind of be like a weird test, because you would be punishing yourself for every time you got it right. you should have Floyd FP be there and like, okay, folks, we just heard a claim from Darth. Was that a confusion of ontology with epistemology? Drink if you think it was. Don't drink if you think it wasn't. And everybody thinks, like, you're correct. That was it. Just watch, like, just to test people. The people that don't understand it would be the ones that would mercifully get to go away and like, okay, yeah, like, whew, I get to stay sober. I'm not yakking up in the. Be a great game to have. No one wins. The people that don't get it don't get to enjoy alcohol. The people that do win it are going to drink to excess and probably have to go to the emergency room. Does that mean the pen floats up to the sky? It does. And according to Darth, God opened the wombs of those women just for them to have those kids have cancer. Yes. Yeah. That's actually a really good point, because that's an important component that he's made when he's talking about the flood. Oh, well, you don't know that there was any kids then. He was only killing adults. He closed the wombs of those women. There were no kids. The Bible doesn't say that they had kids, even though it does. Genesis 6 does talk about them procreating and growing out of control, which sort of, in order for humans to reproduce and grow and spread, we kind of have to have kids. So he's a dum-dum. Yeah. Just because we don't know what is the fundamental origins of things doesn't mean there isn't one. Yeah. And what he's saying is like, well, if you can't identify it, then it's entailed that it's not there and everything just blows up and reduces to absurdity. No.
And you therefore cannot affirm anything, and you will not be able to deny anything.
Yes, you can.
Okay? And
yes, you can. You can affirm and deny whatever you want. You may not be correct, but you can do it. I would like him to actually say that. Like, you can't do it. Yes, I can. Watch me. I'll do it right now. I'll demonstrate it right fucking now.
Okay. Questions?
Let's go with that one. So now I have a question that I've been trying to get answered forever. Can you please just answer the question?
I'm listening.
What are the things that are necessary for an intelligible human experience that are the reason that you're presupposing the existence?
The necessary.
Tone thinks that an answer has been provided. In a way, to Tone's satisfaction, yeah. Jesus.
The necessary irreducible primary that is indispensable for all temporal states, including intelligibility, is the God of the Bible and his property set.
How do you know that?
That's bad. That the entailment to that is potentially devastating for a lot of other arguments you would make about God, especially if you're going to get into things like omnipotence, omniscience. Well, omniscience may be less problematic, but every one of them ends up becoming problematic in relationship to omnibenevolence with that kind of assertion.
But though,
because he revealed it.
To what? How? What way? If he means general revelation, then general revelation is just Darth appealing to the fact that he's inferred from his experience of reality that it was made by something. So now he's calling reality creation. And then he can infer from that, which is kind of logical, that a creation needs a creator. And then that is general revelation. So general revelation is just somebody inferring a maker from stuff that was made. But it ultimately starts with an assumption that the stuff that we have, like the stuff that we encounter in the universe, in the natural world around us, the sky above, the ground below, as being built for us, like we would build a house for ourselves. So it's starting from an assumption that seems to be kind of anthropomorphizing nature, or at least thinking that it's responsible, whatever was responsible for it was some kind of agent with a mind. So general revelation is already not off to a great start. Special revelation is just a blatant assumption, a bald assertion that God communicates directly with some of us and did so with the Bible. A carefully edited, over long periods of time, collection of 66 books, which we have in a canon now, Other books have been discarded or ignored or erased or whatever, depending on various circumstances. I guess Darth would say the editing process was perfect and inerrant. But that is as good as talking to God directly. That is God's direct communication to man. So we have special revelation too. I'm doing this to say, like, okay, so general revelation does not get us where Darth goes. It doesn't, because not everyone is going to assume that the sky and the planet and the green grass and the trees were made by anything. So general revelation is based on an assumption that if you don't assume stuff was made, you don't need to infer a maker, and therefore it just breaks down. The special revelation is that thing, once you've got general revelation, that thing talks to us and has made deals with us and pacts with us and has guided certain groups through history, directly and indirectly, through signs and wonders and prophecies and prophets. You don't have to believe that. There's no solid proof that any of that stuff was real. It was written by people. There's proof that the stories exist, but there's no proof that it wasn't some kind of narrative developed for certain purposes, cultural, political, whatever.
When?
Now, hold on a second. Now, in the Christian worldview, could I know of God's existence and his nature and his plan of creation apart from his self-disclosure and revelation?
No, which actually is kind of interesting, right? Let's go back and
Of creation and his nature,
Yeah.
could I know of God's existence and his nature and his plan of creation apart from his self-disclosure and revelation?
yes, because you're attributing it. You could know it in the sense that it's a narrative that you attribute to gaps in your understanding about how reality works. So yeah, you can know it in the same sense that you can know Harry Potter is a wizard student that goes to Hogwarts, and James Bond is an MI6 operative. They're not real, but you know it. So this is really not a valuable question to ask. Would I know about God if he wasn't revealing himself to me? Yeah. From my perspective, you would. Like, no, 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 no. I'm talking about from my attribute set. Could I possibly know that? Well, from your attribute set, I'd have to assume the truth of your entire worldview and say that the only way I can know God is for him to make himself aware, to make himself, acknowledgeable to me. But he didn't at first. He just did that through creation. Somebody just assumed that we've got stuff. It was probably made by something. That thing is God. We should burn a goat.
I don't know.
The answer is no. So when
Okay, I would ask, then how did somebody come to the knowledge of Allah or the Hindu pantheon or the Greek gods? Well, they didn't reveal themselves to them. Those people made those gods up. It doesn't matter that those gods are directly connected with observations about the natural world. A god responsible for the seas, a god responsible for the lightning and the thunder in the sky, a god responsible for our wisdom in warfare. God's responsible for strife. God's responsible for other, gods and goddesses of love or lust or the harvest. Those people were just confused. Those people knew those gods. Darth's just going to be like, well, no, they didn't know them. They lack knowledge about thunder and lightning. They lack knowledge about fire. They lack knowledge about earthquakes and volcanoes. They lack knowledge about the seas. And they attributed a human being to it. How is Darth doing anything different? Instead of the skies and the seas, he's just saying reality. This is the blanket I drape over the great big weird mystery thing that I can't quite name or define. I'll call it God, and it necessarily is the one described in the Christian Bible. Okay, I understood step one, but after the word and it's the God of the Christian Bible, that part, I need you to do a better job of trying to connect the two, because I'm not getting it.
And I give you an answer, even though you do not like the answer, or for that matter, that you do not accept the answer.
All of the above. Don't like the answer, don't accept the answer. So it doesn't matter if I don't like it. I don't accept it either. I don't think it's legitimate. So yeah. Let's see. Okay, done working. Can you start over, please? Sure, we'll do. We'll go another 2 hours and 44 minutes. I'll just start from the jump. Good to see you, Peter. Yeah, Peter is slumming over here. Yeah, he was working hard. He was doing a stream with Aaron. So yeah.
It doesn't matter that you don't accept my answer. What matters is that my answer is consistent and conforms and is rightly derived from my worldview. Now,
What difference does that make? You could concoct any worldview and then try to make sure that you internally you map out the internal consistencies of it so that you make other claims about reality that don't somehow blow up what your purported worldview is. That's no accomplishment. That's just you. That's just you confirming bias. I can't believe you even put it that way. Now hang on. I'm better at confirming my bias than you are, Taco, if that's your real name.
now, if you choose to reject that God has revealed himself through natural and special revelation,
Yeah, I don't believe that. I think God just, God is something people dream up.
that he has disclosed himself about how he created this world and how the world operates, then as a consequence of you not accepting it, you will not be able to make any affirmations at all, because in order to do so,
Okay, that doesn't make sense. Let's see what he said. In order to do so, what?
you're going to have to know what the ultimate nature of reality is and how it provides for possibility and demarcates for impossibility.
That's the same thing. You just say possibility. No, you don't need to know that. You do not need to know that. That's just him saying you need an equivalent worldview that explains away all the stuff mine explains away, and then you need to show that it's better than mine. You need to come up with a worldview and then use it to externally critique the Christian worldview. Why would I do that? Why would I waste my time? I'm not here to make the same mistake Darth Dawkins is making by trying to say there's all these worldviews out there I got to beat up on by saying that they don't compare to my Christian worldview when I impose an external criticism on those worldviews by saying they don't line up to points A through Z of the Christian worldview. That's pointless. That's a pointless exercise in futility. All of that. Really, all of this is. Whew. It's time for me to sign off. I'm starting to have an existential crisis. Damn it, Darth. But if you do this, if you were to do that, like, okay, well, you need to come up with something right now, an alternative. No, I don't. I am here to wreck up the place. You've been making claims about this, and now you're in here making claims I can't make claims or I can't raise objections. And the only way out that he's giving you is to engage in a fallacy so devastating that you wouldn't be able to really be able to make any justifiable claims anyway. You need to establish a worldview body double, as he calls it, which he doesn't want to accept and he won't deal with. He'll say that you're being dishonest, but you need to do that, right? And it can't be some equivalent of Christianity, but it needs to be comparable to Christianity, and it needs to be one that you actually believe, not one that you're positing for the sake of argument. So, okay, so I just need to become convinced of a worldview that is identical to Christianity in nearly every single way. It just doesn't have Christianity. It doesn't say Jesus, and it doesn't acknowledge the truth of the Bible. Check. And then it's got to point for point either match or exceed something in Christianity. It's got to beat it out. I shouldn't put it that way. Beat it out. The way that that's not going to work, though, is that I can't. This is what Darth does. This is how he'll engage in it. He'll look at somebody's supposed worldview and be like, "Oh, you're a naturalist. Let me get in there and tell you why naturalism doesn't work in an internal criticism here, and here." And then try to wrap that up in a bow and say, and by the way, none of that works because it's not grounded in Christ. Like, that part has nothing to do with the internal criticism that you approached. So if I'm coming into the Christian worldview, you're trying to convince me that the Christian worldview is the only worldview or the best worldview, one or the other. He hasn't decided yet because he's an nincompoop. But I'm in here trying to be like, okay, here are the internal consistencies that I find with this. And he's like, oh yeah, come up with something better, bitch. And it better match this. And until you have that, I don't want to hear anything from you. Like, no, that is not how you do this. That is automatically fallacious. Unless you have another worldview and you're going to do and engage in an external criticism of my presuppositional apologetic, I don't want to hear shit from you. Darth is just excluding anyone who's attempting to do an internal criticism. If I'm in there, right, and I'm not saying that if I would do this better. If anyone's in these groups, if anyone's doing this kind of thing, you can simply go in there and be like, I totally agree with presupposing a God of creation. Absolutely get it. Where I'm getting hung up is the pre-supper's insistence that I have to presuppose and assume the indispensability and truth, or indispensability of the truth of the Christian worldview in order as a foundation for knowledge. That's the part that I'm having a problem with. How do I get there? I have no problem, not even for the sake of argument. Let's say I'm inclined to be a deist or a theist in general. Ultimate creator being is responsible for all of reality. Check. Next. Why Christianity? Go. Go, 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 go. Can you do it? No. He can't. The only thing he'll do then is point out why, well, Judaism's incomplete because it doesn't have the New Testament, which is the point. The Quran isn't, Islam is incomplete because they deny the Christ and their book has errors in it about the world around us and science and stuff like that. Check. Okay. What about the Hindus? Well, they have multiple gods, so clearly they don't. Oh, right. Yeah, too many gods. Too many. I didn't realize that was a problem. Right. So creator, but it's got to be one thing, one person. Yep. Okay. What about a pantheistic God? What if God is all of reality, stuff like the Force or something like that? Wrong. Got to be personal. Is it personal? Well, I don't know. It materialized in an avatar form like Avatar, that blue people movie from Cameron, or the Hindu thing. No, it's not that at all. No, he's a person. Jesus is a person. They're one person, but they're two people in one person with one mind, but two minds or something. Bonkers. None of this is necessary for somebody to come in and be like, look, you've made some claims about reality. They're not tracking for me, even if I assume your worldview. So let's just break this down internally. If you try to do that, by the way, it's taken a long time to say this. If you try to do that, he will ask you if you legitimately believe in Christ. And if you don't, he'll ask for an alternative anyway. And if you're like, well, I'm agnostic as far as Jesus goes, but I am inclined to believe in the in the theist position. I believe in that there is some kind of creator God or gods. Now, thrill me. Give me your sales pitch. Well, this God has a redemptive plan for man and has all these properties. Don't buy it. He's out of moves. Immediately out of moves. And then what he'll do is pivot back and be like, no, you provide me a better God then. You do better then. You write me a better Bible. You create me a better story than the one I've already decided is absolutely true and necessarily true. And then you'll just get muted and kicked. And the person who lost the most out of that, the person who learned the least, was Darth.
Now, if you do not know what is ultimate and you just simply say, well, there's stuff out there like causality or laws and they just are, right? Either you're going to tell me that matter, energy, causality, and laws of nature are the irreducible primary of existence, or you're just going to simply say, well, they just are. So which is it?
They just are.
Okay.
But we aren't.
Okay, now listen carefully.
At no point did we say we were discussing my position.
I'm trying to explain to you something that you are unaware of. What you have now affirmed are what are called brute facts, okay? Now, from a transcendental perspective, a brute fact is any state of affairs, okay, that when somebody says, well, it just is, it either is or happens without reason. Not that you're unaware of it, it just is. Now what you have is is at the outermost contextual layer of when you speak is a chant system,
None of this tracks.
and therefore anything goes. Therefore,
That doesn't follow.
you do not have the capacity to affirm anything.
Nope. That doesn't follow either. You can affirm what you want.
And if you
Okay.
want to challenge that, I'll be happy to talk about it right now.
He's been challenging that. He's been asking how are you arguing for it, other than just insisting that it's the case. That's all I heard again was just Darth insisting this is how it works. Sorry to highlight this, but I thought this was funny. Jill was on P-Town's latest stream too. He was one of the reasons P-Town cried and deleted the stream. I was the other reason, by the way. When did this happen, Peter? And how were we not invited? You and Jill together on a panel is pure YouTube poison. I can see why P-Town cried. It is. It really is. Watching Peter toy with Jill, it's a masterclass in trolling, but it can quickly get out of control. The talking over and stuff, it can get stressful. I can see if P-Town is kind of a sensitive guy, I can see why it didn't work. Wait a minute, what? Fun fact, I didn't even talk to Jill. He got into a fight with another Christian on the stream. Oh. Dogmatic differences, eh? Maybe that's why P-Town cried. Oh, wow, Darth is super disingenuous. Yeah, and I don't know if I don't even really know how much disingenuousness or dishonesty is here. I really do think he believes he's thinking clearly and comprehensively about the issue. I don't know that I really don't think he sees how illogical and poorly mapped out this line of reasoning is. And then he's trying to say, well, this is somehow necessarily beamed into my head by the powers of Grayskull. I mean, God. And therefore I can't be wrong. And it's like, yeah, but you are. Because if there are laws of logic and fallacies are one way, informal and formal fallacies are one of the ways we can use to kind of suss out a person's reason, and reason and logic are examples of the mind of God, then we can demonstrate here that Darth is not being reasonable or logical in a lot of cases because of the number of informal fallacies he's trafficking in while having having a discussion. So again, Darth Dawkins is my proof that the God of the Christian Bible that has a Holy Spirit that regenerates hearts, he's evidence for why that's not the case. Peter says, yeah, Jefferson, he's racking up the non sequiturs like he's going for a personal incoherence record. He really is. Yeah, he's actually starting to dissolve into the Bugs Bunny on ayahuasca head trip that I've got in my head right now. He's practically sprinting towards it. A few days ago, P-Town had a presentation to convert us, and silly me asked him for sources. Oh, you don't do that. Just let them have their fun. Then ask them for sources. You fucker. Yeah, you dishonest atheist, you. How dare you go in there with your questions like, citations, please. I thought the Bible was enough. It sure isn't. How dare you ask for sources? Praise's channel is a good place for Jill. I hope he stays there. I'm wondering what Jill is going to do here, because isn't Jill on he's on a sabbatical, like an imposed boycott. He'll hang out on channels, but he won't do any of his own streams until Blondie McBlobmore, America's Baron Harkonnen, gets in for a second term. I think that's what he's hoping for.
No, at no point did we ever say we were going to discuss my position. I want to know more about your position, which is why
I just explained to you my position.
Yeah, and this entire thing, the 32 minutes that we've watched so far, that has taken me it's taken me 3 hours to cover because I'm a motor mouth and an idiot, has been Darth insisting that Taco needs a different worldview. What he needs is the Christian worldview, but if he's going to try and go toe-to-toe with Darth, he needs a worldview that is equivalent to or greater than the Christian worldview. So he's just been telling him, like, oh, you think this, then this doesn't work. Oh, you think that, then that doesn't work, because it's not stacking up to Christianity yet.
that the God of the Bible, ontologically, metaphysically, is the necessary prerequisite for all temporal states. Deny that, and in order to account and provide intelligibility for temporal states, you're going to have to tell me what does exist that renders God unnecessary.
Really, was that really what he wanted? Hang on. Renders God unnecessary, or renders the Christian worldview unnecessary? Because when they started off on this, Darth was super triggered about the fact that he was saying that, yo, Taco, you're trying to say that the Christian worldview is dispensable, and I'm saying that it's indispensable for intelligibility and logic and truth and so forth. So how dare you, and come up with something better, and um, have at you, and all this kind of stuff. And then now, all right, you need to tell me why God's indispensable. Shift a little. Darth's position is missionary. Anything else is ungodly. Well said, Aaron. Don't overtalk me. I'm looking for mature atheists.
Everything. But like I said, once again, we're not. I'm not
know
here
what?
to discuss my position.
What you just proved to me is you don't have a clue as to what I just said.
Nobody knows what you're talking about, Darth, except for me, and I'm a psycho.
Now,
everything is just here.
Listen
That's
carefully. Listen
how
carefully. I am educating you, okay? In spite of the fact that this is a little bit heated and agitated, I'm educating you right now. Now, I'm going to ask you a simple question. In the Christian worldview that you do not accept, but in the Christian worldview, God is the irreducible primary from which all states of affairs depend. Your
Okay.
conclusion is,
why is that though?
May I finish, please? Do you want to be educated, or do you want to be a little dick like an obnoxious little fifth grader?
Whoa. Wait, a dick like a fifth grader. That's what I heard. That's what you all heard, right? Right? A dick like an obnoxious little fifth grader. Does he just go around calling like fifth graders dicks? All fifth graders are dicks. That's what you're like. People get after me for often doing the ageism thing, because sometimes it does sound like I'm punching down and engaging in ageist rhetoric when I call them old or something like that. So I'm trying to stay away from doing, because I myself, I am no spring chicken either. So calling them old or referring to as like old age or anything, I think is not great. Even though his dentures are loose and he fills his diaper while he does these. Sorry. See, I did it. It's so easy. It's so easy. But he is a crusty bastard, and his big problem is that he hates everyone, and he makes fun of everyone for being human. Like fifth graders, obnoxious dicks. You're an obnoxious dick. You're an obnoxious teenager. You're a pimple-faced asshole. You're just a dick. He seems to hate dicks. Not according to his wife, though. I think there was another issue that he had with dicks that caused some issues with his marriage.
I'm simply asking questions because I want to learn
shut
more.
up and I'll explain it to you.
Yeah, he really did. He put all his righteous anger into that dick. Yeah, and it's kind of weird. I wonder if maybe he was going to say something else, maybe something a little bit harsher. But dick, I guess, was the most Christian thing. You know, it's just like Jesus said when Jesus was ripping through those tables at the temple. He just kept, "You're a bunch of dicks, like elementary school kids. Get the hell out of here, you dicks." I remember that. I remember that clearly. I that's some of my favorite Bible.
You know what? You're like a little teenager who didn't take their Ritalin and get sent home.
Oddly specific. What the hell was that?
Okay, shut up and I'll explain it to you. You know what? You're like a little teenager who didn't take their Ritalin and get sent home.
Well, okay, so things have improved. He's no longer, Taco's not in fifth grade anymore. So news for everybody. Let it be known. Darth doesn't think that Taco is a 9 or 10-year-old. He is now a teenager, but he's a teenager that needs Ritalin, and he didn't take his Ritalin, and now he has to be sent home. I bet I know who has the authority to send him packing. It's Darth, teacher Darth. I think fifth graders routinely call Darth. Yeah, they would. Alex fans. Alex was bullied so hard. Yeah. I wonder if maybe Darth put that much mustard on saying dick is because he hasn't grappled with his homosexuality. I'm not saying this is like a problem, right? I'm not trying to be this guy's punching down us, but I really do like some of the stuff that he does when he comes out against LGBTQ people. Just seems really like kind of classically homophobic. Like he really has a hard time dealing with it because maybe he has his own. He can't deal with his own sexual attractions. So, but I seem to recall back in the day he liked to use. He would call people cocks and stuff like that when he was a lot more sweary. He seems to have really kind of reined it in. Maybe this is the TikTok influence. He's really trying to like cap it up, you know.
Now, since you do not accept the existence of the Christian God in virtue of his self-disclosure and revelation, your conclusion, your position is that the Christian God is unnecessary. The Christian God is superfluous.
No, Darth, you were originally talking about the worldview, not the God itself. So
that means in order for you to speak anything intelligibly, that there is something that exists.
yeah, right, Spooky. I'm very mature. It's like when you hear somebody say declare themselves to be quite humble. Like, yeah, that's one of those adjectives you want somebody to say about you when you say it about yourself. Kind of contradicts. Are you saying Darth has a hard time thinking of little? I did not say that, Peter. I didn't say that. You just wrote that, though. I'm just saying that I think this guy is wrestling with a lot of internal baggage and a lot of internalized self hatred, and that's why he goes to these places.
That provides that is in the place of God that makes God unnecessary. So now what the question is what is it that is ultimate and indispensable in existence that will be the basis of why anything at all exists and provides for temporal facts? What is it?
Just explain to me what's responsible for everything else.
I don't know, but like I said before, I'm not.
Okay, stop right there. Listen to me. You're not understanding.
Here it comes.
Your answer, do you know what your answer means metaphysically? It means game over, lights out. But you're not aware of why it was so catastrophic. Because now, anything you assert, okay, it doesn't matter what you listen to me. Shut up. You know what? Goodbye. You're gone.
Every sentence you speak,
you won't answer the question.
Every sentence you speak is loaded with assertions.
He answered your question.
Yeah, he did.
Pretty
clearly.
You asked, what is his position? What are the necessary preconditions of intelligibility that he believes? What does he believe?
No, he's okay. We're done with him. I gave him 4 or 5 chances. I bent over backwards trying to be patient with him. I should have been even more patient with him, but he is an obnoxious moron. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about when it.
No, actually, all of his questions were centered around him not knowing what the hell you were talking about. And when he was asking for questions, you would usually come back and then skip around by making assertions and making declarations about what God is and what it does and how you can know him without actually showing how. You just declared what it was.
Comes to theology, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about when it comes to basic philosophical concepts, and he's shooting his mouth off. Okay, he's making assertion after assertion after assertion, but his worldview doesn't provide for assertions, so it's game over, lights out.
His worldview doesn't provide for assertions, therefore he's a loser. Okay, yeah, I guess with logic like that, how could you possibly win against this mental giant here? Holy shit. None of that follows. Taco was trying to get you to make a connection for how it could follow, and you're like, you know what? You don't have Jesus in your worldview, so you can't make it follow. And then, yeah, then everything turned into this. And Taco got called a dick.
I can definitely tell he's a Jim Mantis follower for sure.
What? Does somebody keep muting Tone Look? Like, what has he done?
Since he's a naturalist. So.
Yeah, well, first of all, he can't even assert I am and naturalism. He can't assert anything in his worldview because there is no static framework to appeal to.
Well, he said he was a naturalist, and Darth asked him what that was, and he couldn't tell him what that
I
was.
was
Look. Listen to me. If there is no identifiable,
it is wild how the only charitable one is Tonlock. Tonlock is the same guy that turned on Ozzy as soon as that JT guy showed up. Yeah.
irreducible, indispensable primary from which all temporal states derived and are prescribed, meaning.
Right. What does that have to do with you knowing it? He's just going back to like, well, are you not following me here? Everything depends on this thing making it so. Cool. What does me having to acknowledge its existence have to do with me being able to say things are true or false? How are you getting there? Well, because until you accept that that's how things work, you can't really say what's true or false, can you? Sure I can. So I can't say my refrigerator's broken when it's broken because I didn't give credit to God. Bonkers.
Possibility and impossibility, then you cannot make assertions. Right? Because assertions are going to require something foundational.
So that's it, folks. That's where I got cut off. So yeah, Jesus, what a mess. All right, I'm going to wrap it up there. What is your Jesus, son of Mary and Joseph, born of a virgin, risen on the third day? Yeah. Oh, you don't know what I'm talking about? Well, this is what I'm talking about. Provide me an equivalence of all the things that I'm talking about, and then I'll let you know what I'm talking about and explain how it works as soon as I tell you why yours doesn't. Waste of time. It's a waste of time. Like, well, I came here to ask you how Christianity works, and all I'm hearing is how atheism doesn't. That doesn't follow that because atheism doesn't work for you, that it necessarily must be the case that Christianity is true. Or do you reason like that? I kind of think Darth Dawkins reasons like that. So that's it. All right, that's it at 3 hours, 11 minutes. Jesus, I'm an excessive idiot. All right, well, it's time to close this one out. Let me get rid of that. I've got to punch up that that screen. I don't know if I'm going to cover many more of these. Most of these are pretty long, and given the fact that some of the comments on some of these can get a little blue, I may not. This one I thought was fun, mostly because it was a conversation between Darth and Taco, and I know Taco, and it was relatively short at only 37 minutes. The other ones, if I find some snippets or something like that that I can play, and some of the other ones I'm going to do, some of these Saturday episodes, I might do that, kind of collect a few of them. But this might be the only one that I kind of sit through and do this because the other ones they're just too damn long. And I don't know if these kind of get like that carefully screened. The fact that it's just a feed directly from this dude's whoever recorded this. I'm assuming this is Supreme Leader stream. I could have swore he was typing in there. Yeah, that could get potentially a little weird. But with that being said, I'm going to wrap this one up. We'll see what this one does as far as monetization goes. If J.L. Warren's theory is correct, this one might end up getting privated for YouTube reasons or whatever. My thanks. For the life of me, I can't understand how you listen to this straight through. I need every sentence broken up with something that makes sense. Yeah. To be fair, most of these ones, if they're this length, I'm listening to them at about at least 1.5 speed. And it's during a work day or a stretch of the work day where I'm just doing something really tedious, some kind of digital paperwork shuffling or some data entry or something like that, I got some time. I'm just going to be grinding it out. And even then it gets interrupted with phone calls and stuff. I can't actually sit through them. I will admit that I can't turn one on and just listen to it at normal speed straight through without pausing it, punching myself in the face, screaming into a seat cushion somewhere, and then turning it back on. Like, it's not always that dramatic, but like part of my brain does that little flip, like, I can't believe this guy said something that dumb. So, but it's Darth, the gift that keeps on giving, folks. And speaking of gifts, thank you again for super chats. I really appreciate the generosity. And I will be back to do another stream, hopefully not at the same time that Peter's live. With that being said, it looks like Spooky might be going. Let's see. Hit that like button, folks. Thank you for that reminder. Spooky, I don't mind an 8-hour stream. Start one up. I'll join for a bit. If there is one, yeah. Clive Gordon, 15-minute car ride took 3 hours. Thanks, Jefferson. See, my live streams bend space and time. That's what I'm talking about. So, yeah, get bent with your temporal facts, Darth. Yeah, those are tough. Those are really tough. We did a 24-hour stream fundraiser for the Trevor Project. 4 people, 8-hour shifts. That was a fun day. Those are tough. I've only participated in like one of those for like, I jumped in for like a half an hour, 45 minutes for a charity one that I think, I can't remember who did that one. Was that a Math Pig or I think it was one of Math Pigs. With that being said, I will get out of here. I'll be back probably in the middle of the week or early in the week to catch up on a couple of other things. Like I said, this one probably won't do too much more off the Supreme Leader streams other than to pick and choose a few things. Another reminder, again, I'll post it back in here because I didn't pin it before. Let's see here. Like this needs to get any longer. All right. The link to what's going on there. That is the link for the Stage of Reason over on Bridge the Divide. That's going to be tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. So kind of adjust accordingly. I will be over there. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Sounds like it's going to be fun. No idea who's going to be showing up. My understanding is Jail is keeping the panel itself kind of tight. I think there's going to be about 3-4 of us. And then we all have kind of set times and set issues that we're going to try to set or take. So yeah, could be interesting. I'm hoping it'll be fun and educational. Will you stream like Mrs. Davy Drives? Yeah, slow yet dangerous. Yeah. All right, folks. Thank you again for being here. Definitely check out that stream tomorrow if you're inclined. If you're going to be up that early, or even if you are and you're hungover, maybe listening to us will. Well, maybe not. If you're hungover, that might just give you some anxiety. But I will play us out with this. Everyone, take care of each other. Be nice to each other as much as you can, except to people like Darth. He's a jerk. He's not going to reciprocate. And see some of you tomorrow. Take care.